That's not very loud. Ooh, I bet we're live already. Shh, everyone quiet. We're live. This is Art's Only Picture Show number 62 with James True talking about his brand new book. The technology of belief. The technology of belief. The technology of belief.
The technology of belief.
The technology of belief.
Yeah, the technology of belief over there, yeah.
Technology of belief.
I saw some technology over there. I couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
The technology of belief.
Friendly reminder that poop is not food. Oh, I guess we better promote this thing, like we do.
Yeah, waiting on links. Waiting on the link. Wait, yeah. Hey, do you have a timer on the screen so people can fast forward when it's, you know, the ones that... Okay, well, look, can we tell them now how long it'll be? Or is that too hard? You know what I mean? Like...
Well, folks, we'll be live in less than 10 minutes at the most, you know. It doesn't take us that long to promote. Welcome, thank you for joining us. And we always take a minute to let the chat fill up and people tune in. And so... we will, I'd say 15 minutes. No, probably just 10 minutes. We'll be live in 10.
Me?
Yeah, you usually greet the chat as they pile in.
Oh yeah, I keep working.
I got 5 people here watching now.
Hey, can I get a link?
I'm trying to get
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Sorry, I didn't mean to be all pushy.
No, it's okay.
You there, in the chat. Have a great day. I'd give a shout out to Moab Grover, who was sent to the Twitter jail today on behalf of Charlie Kirk. So hats off to Moab Grover. We'll see you in a week, buddy. See you on the other side.
The Groypers, that's their whole gig, is to get themselves banned so they can come back and say, help me find the other Groypers, and do that like over and over again.
Really? Well, this is my first exposure.
Yeah, they're all about it. Because they're all either white nationalists or LARPing as white nationalists, and so they try to act all sweet and good, but really then they say the N-word and other bad stuff and get in trouble.
Oh shit, well I didn't know that's what it meant. Sorry. Damn.
What is up, Snake Jones number 9?
Hey, I think I know Snake Jones. Yeah. I don't know if it's number 9, but there's the link. Hey, it's got my name on it. 62. Wow.
The cop says, hey fellers. And calls him James Brew. What's up, Isla Red?
tag people on your smartphone. The track by Adam Moore, all instruments by Adam Moore. It's called "You Better Not Sleep in the Ocean."
You better not sleep in the ocean. 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 You better not sleep in the ocean, or else you'll drown.
That's gonna have to be enough people tagged. Next. No, we're not adding location. Eight people here. It's gonna be a great show, folks. We're gonna talk to James True about the book we just published. Hey, I just took this to the chat. What's going on? Dude, how's it going? Welcome. Hot off the presses. We're gonna get insider take on the technology of blueprints and other stuff too.
If you check your Twitter, SB, I sent you that tweet. I want to talk about that because it's kind of a heavy topic.
Was it a private message?
It's just a link to her site to a particular article.
Oh, okay, I see.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry about that. I should have muted. I couldn't get it in time.
What happened where we ended up with the same track here? Weird. I'm gonna play particle target. Ski-ratch. Zing zap, and here we go to a different song. This is almost like the picture show theme song here.
Don't look at the particle target now. Don't look at the particle target then. Don't look at the particle target ever. Or you'll ruin the experiment. Don't look at the particle target now. Don't look at the particle target then. Don't look at the particle target ever. Or you'll ruin the experiment. Maybe they'll find a Higgs boson. Maybe they'll find a new lepton.
Lemonade song coming up now.
I'm gonna paint you a great big wall of flowers. I'm gonna make them as bright as they really are. And I don't care if it takes me 100 hours. And I'm not gonna stop until I'm done. Because I got it in my soul. And now I got to let it go. And I want you and the world to know. Because I got it in my soul. And now I got to let it go. And I want you and the world to know. Because I got it in my soul. Now I got to let it go. And I want you and the world to know. Because I got it in my soul. Now I got to let it go. And I want you and the world to know. I'm gonna paint you a great big wall of flowers. I'm gonna make them as bright as they really are. I wanna thank you for giving me the power. And when I'm all done, I'll accept that you are gone.
All right, well, I'm gonna delay for just a moment here. The song's over, but we lost our premier individual there. Oh, this is a good song, short song. Sorry for the delay, folks. Another minute and 10 here. Oh no, there we go. I see the man. That'll work. I'm pushing the button. Here we go. We are live. Oh, and I've got it on the wrong one, of course. Here, let's try that one more time. And live. Oh my gosh. Phew. Oh, that was hard. Shouldn't be that challenging. James True. I'm SB. I don't see Jim. Welcome to Picture Show
I'm right over
number
here.
62. Oh, there he is. Welcome. Thank you for coming back and joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Good to see you guys. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday to you also. And now this week, folks, if you didn't read the description or hear all of the rambling, our friend James has published his third book here just in the last, I think it's within the last 10 days even. It's called The Technology of Belief, and there's some bullet points there in the title also. And we thought that was a great reason to have James come and extrapolate. You know, let's dig into this thing. Let's unzip it and see what's inside a little, and of course we might digress a little away from it. But I've read about 30 pages. I'm excited to get my hard copy and like read it when I'm laying there in my pajamas. And so was it the hardest one you've written? Yeah, James, was this the one that offered you the most challenge as composition, as the process of putting it together, or how did it feel to write The Technology of Belief?
You know, it's actually funny you say that because it's probably was the most painful one. There's a lot in this book that, like, I reading Mein Kampf is a perfect example of one of the things that went into that book. Wow, you know, I mean, talk about starting off dark, but like just really looking at World War II is really hard. I mean, it's an emotional experience to have to revisit history that you've been taught since you were a little boy, and to reevaluate everything that you've been told. That is not a feeling that's like, hey man, you want to go bowling? Yeah, man. Hey, on the way, let's talk about World War II and the Holocaust and stuff. Why don't we go get some pizza and beers and talk about Auschwitz?
Yeah,
How does that
we'll
sound?
go to the cemetery tonight.
Yeah, so it's like I don't actually use this, but a funny sort of tagline I tell myself is that I read Mein Kampf so you didn't have to.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, and by the way, that's really only one chapter in the book, but the point is that I started writing this book as soon as the day Blueprints of Mind Control was published, I was writing this book, and it was just sort of the next look at why are these fuckers working so hard to get our belief? Well, like, why don't they just put us in chains and just like whip us and say, I know you don't want to do it. Aha, do it. It's never that. It's they want our belief. They want our essence, like in the Dark Crystal. Like they want to drink that. And so really this book is looking at that. It's uncovering, it's figuring that out. It's realizing that belief is a prana. It's a life force that flows through you, and it's more valuable than gold. They actually want that more than gold. If you were to shit gold, they would still want your prana. They would still want your belief. I mean, that would be still their main goal. And
even the gold wouldn't even be so valuable if it wasn't for our belief, right?
Well, actually, that's a really good point. Yeah, I definitely think that there's something alchemical to that element, but that alchemically it will hold your belief. It's a better vessel for your belief. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me
wrong. You held real silver and real gold. You know, like I'm holding real. I keep one by my desk because this is an alchemical experience to pick this up right now and touch this. And so there's that. But yeah, we imbue this with our belief, and this book really is analyzing that. It's this word prana economy. You've probably heard me talk about that. I don't know how that term grabs people, but that's what I sort of uncovered in this book, is explaining how this belief economy works. How does the reason why I wanted to look at it is because you guys have seen me on social media. I'm having a rational conversation with someone. I'm giving them factual information about Epstein meeting with Steve Bannon. Like I'm factually just I'm not even speculating. I'm like, here's a photograph on August 8th, 2018 of Steve Bannon walking into the mansion of Epstein, and Epstein opening the door and greeting him. So, and they're like, yeah, but you don't know if they were like really like that could have been like a breakfast delivery thing, like he's got an Uber account, Steve Bannon, because he got fired, and he was just out delivering breakfast, man. And when you're having those conversations, you're like, oh my God, why did this person abandon me? Well, like, why did they just abandon their ship in front of me?
Right.
And that's why we argue online, because we watch each other abandon ourselves in front of each other. And it's like, what causes that to happen? And I think it's this prana economy. I think it's this energy that is living underneath the bullshit words that we give each other, the sigils that we say to each other. Well, the economy is a stratosphere that's uninhibited by certain vectors that could only be equestriated through some kind of quantitative easing. Underneath it, the prana of that is, fuck you, we're going to keep printing money. Fuck you, we're going to create something called compound interest. And fuck you, we're not even going to explain to you that inflation actually does exist. There's a different energy underneath to everything, and no one talks about that. And
when did you first have the idea to, like, because Jim and I had speculated that you might actually name the book Prana Economy, and I saw Tiffany Fitzhenry published an article, and she was talking about belief economy, and I didn't know if you guys read each other's columns or something, but her most recent column, I found it to be oddly similar to this work that you're doing.
Oh no, Well, I hope it doesn't seem like I've been copying her or anything.
No, it would have been just the opposite, in my opinion. It seems like
Oh.
she's paralleling your work. It's probably just because it's in the air. People don't realize how
Yeah.
much stuff is in the air, you know?
Oh no, I can't tell you how many times Owen Benjamin will say something that's like right out of my book, and
Yeah.
so I know that Tiffany. She's like a really powerful fucking Jedi, man, and I find myself seeing a lot of things that she's seeing at the same time. We'll cross paths over a dead carcass, that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just killed this giant lie together. We meet each other over the carcass, and kind of high five each other and wander off with our lightsabers to fight another day. So, but yeah, this economy is why we have two parties. It's demonstrated in the two poles and the two towers that go through history, and the book starts with the Kabbalists. It starts in the very beginning, before Judaism, and in my opinion, it nails exactly who did this, why it's so effective, and how the magic happens that causes this manipulation of prana to occur, because the prana is already changed underneath. And we are rationally making excuses to explain to ourselves why we are giving something belief that is actually hurting us. And what that is, I think, really boils down to we are in a dimension, a spectrum of slavery and masterhood. There's there's a spectrum of color, there's a spectrum of sound, and there's a spectrum of sovereignty. It's a dimension. And if we did not have free will, if we did not have the ability to be lied to, and if we did not have the ability to lie, we would not have this dimension of sovereignty, where we learn to claim or not claim things around us as our identity. And so this technology of belief is a bona fide, tangible energy. And I've done as best I can to really just show, here's what it was with Caesar, here's what it was with Cleopatra, here's what it was with the Oracle at Delphi, here's what it was in World War II, onward and onward and onward.
Right.
I'm just showing the exact same technology at work, because I'm hoping the reader's going to go, holy shit. So you mean you could say none of these words mean anything? Like, none of the words that we're seeing said when it comes to a political movement or anything involving a zeitgeist, okay? Anything involving a mass zeitgeist, the words that are used are really distracting all of us. They're causing us to lose touch with what's really happening, which is we have a fetish for slavery. There are certain places in that way where we are still slipping, where we still have a crutch, and that crutch is these different systems. It also, the book, it's really important people understand this is the opposite of saying belief is bad or dangerous. This is a book that's showing you belief is the most amazing, awesome goo that ever existed. It's a plasmatic fluorescent force that you emanate, sort of like if you can imagine yourself being a fire hydrant that's always open. Or better yet,
Right.
a spotlight that's always on.
We see
You
that
can't
all the
turn-
time. We see that all the time. People trying to act like I only use facts and I don't have any beliefs. It's a common thing, And I understand that, because belief is so manipulated that just believing something has got a lot of us into like situations we'd have rather not been in, whether it's an interpersonal thing or just a bigger, like everyone quote unquote believed 9/11 when it happened, and then you find out later that there's reason to undermine that. But I'm glad that you're pointing out that, okay, that may even be true, that belief can be dangerous, but it's only dangerous because there's so much power in it.
Yeah.
It's
even
how you move your energy around is with that belief,
it's even more dangerous if you're trying to turn it off. It's so bad. There's a projection that comes out. That's scientism. That's materialism. These are the side effects of pretending that belief doesn't exist. This is how a Puritan ends up burning a witch, because they are just insisting that the unholiness cannot exist in them, that they can create some sort of pristine willpower where nothing bad would ever happen. They want that so bad that bad shit really happens, like in a really bad way. So this is not a book to. Yeah, I guess I've already said that, but this is to invigorate your power in your belief, and more importantly, your responsibility. I want people to understand that we're responsible for our belief, whether or not we understand where it's going and where it's coming from. It's our attention is our belief, and that's why it's really hard. People forget that. Well, no, I don't like Trump. I'm Antifa. I don't like Trump. So every day I'm going to go out and yell and scream how much I don't like Trump, and I don't like Trump, and I don't like Trump. You are entering into a mantra of belief where you're anti-Trump, but you still believe that there is a Trump. You are feeding that belief every day. You're making it bigger. You're making it larger with your prana every day. So you're rationally saying, fuck Trump. But energetically, you're saying Trump, ball Trump. You're giving
ball. You
him
mean
power.
like BAAL?
Yeah,
Boy,
yeah,
it was heard. It was coined here first in a live episode of Picture Show. Ball Trump, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
So get out your phones and make us some ball Trump memes because we're waiting. We want to see them.
If we understood that this is how it worked, I'm under the impression that the entire system wouldn't work anymore the way it does right now, because each of us would consider our own prana, our own belief, as more pristine, as more valuable. Right now we think we can just believe whatever we want. So we're like walking through Vegas, making it rain with dollar bills. We're sticking it in any G-string we can find. We're distributing our belief as fast as it can go. It's a nonstop race to the bottom. Instead, let's take a moment. Let's stop and say, holy cow, when I get up in the morning, the thing that I look at is a precious recipient of my attention. This is almost like a parthenia, a spirit of virginity, in the sense of where I'm giving my attention to things, how I'm
What's parthenia?
what I'm giving it to.
What does that mean?
Parthenia is Parthenia is a word that's been erased from our culture. This is covered in my book, but it's a temple has parthenia as it's being blessed over and over again, as it's sanctified over a period of time. The parthenia builds up. It's a virginity that happens through time. And so back in Greek culture, like in the Temple of Athena, you would build up your parthenia. You would be, it's sort of like building up your karma. It's like, no, well, let's see, I've been really nice. I've been donating a ton of my time. I haven't masturbated in 3 weeks. I haven't done this. It's a, you know what I mean? It's a pristining of yourself. It's a spell that you're casting, that you're consecrating the goodness of a certain thing. It could be a sigil. It could be a prop. Most of us do it to dogs and cats. We're constantly doing that to them. We love them, so we're giving them that. They are a walking parthenia. And you could ruin that, or you could treat it well. And that's what we do with our belief, is we cheapen it. We think it's cheap. And that's why when we get up, we're always delegating it. We're always saying, well, I'm going to believe what my side wants me to believe. Or I'm going to believe even what my friends seem to look like that they are believing. We delegate that all the time. And that delegation, this is what's weird. To delegate is to abandon something. It sounds crazy, but we are abandoning each other every day of every moment of our lives because we're delegating things that are super important to us. We delegate our children to go to the state to learn. We delegate our own sense of survival by going to work to give it to the man. We delegate our sense of geopolitics, our position in life, by delegating it to the government.
Or to CNN.
We delegate EPA. We delegate CNN. We delegate with the FDA. We delegate it with so much.
Yeah,
And
we delegate when we pull through the drive-up window in a hurry.
yep,
You're giving
these,
up your sovereign right to food.
we've made the concept of blind empathy possible. And that's what delegation does. It opens the door for blind empathy because no one has a close look. None of us are looking at our dog directly. Instead, we've set up some sort of crazy Rorschach crazy device thing that we push a button and the button has a hand and the hand comes out and touches the top of the dog's head in a repetitious
Right.
pattern in a
Rube
certain
Goldberg
way.
machine.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth Goldberg. It's we've done that, but we've taught each other that that's how we're supposed to do it. In fact, we're shunning each other if we don't do that. It's a really that's the Wetiko. It's the cannibalism of ourselves, of our own morality, but of our own sovereignty. We're cannibalizing our own sovereignty through mass delegation. It's a way of it's how we're stepping out of our own driver's seat more and more each day. And that is the cause, that is the birth of materialism. That's what makes us think that the world is now made up of empty, lifeless pebbles. Do you see what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we've evacuated the essence from the dust. We don't look at it as soil. We look at it as dust that has a degree of moistness to it. Like it's everything is still a subjective, objective, separate, cold particle. This is a living reflection of what we're doing all around us. Like we're imbuing that because that's what we do. So the technology of belief is just it's bringing all that back home. It's saying, here's all your belief. Look how freaking powerful it is. Look. Not only look how powerful it is in good ways, but look how powerful it is in bad ways too. Look at how it's led us to our belief in America. Guys, since World War II, we've invaded a country every 1.29 years. It's been 35 countries. Sorry, it might not be exactly 35. It's either a little bit higher, it's somewhere around there, but it's that many. And I've got a list here on Twitter. But anyway, every 1.29 years. But we are locked in the belief that we're the good guys. The technology of belief is how expensive it would be to have to reevaluate and own our own behavior. That expense, the calories that it would take for you to own your own behavior is exactly why the New World Order is working. It's thriving on the delegation. In the delegation becomes an abandonment, right? Because we abandon our responsibility. That's a delegation. That creates a vacuum. When you step out of the driver's seat, if you're on a bus and you step out of the driver's seat, anyone else on the bus could get in that seat and start driving. It's right. Not only could they, but there are many benefits to stealing a bus, especially if the driver is getting out of the seat. Like there's so many reasons to do that. This is why they're pushing this so much. They want you to unseat from that sovereignty. It's going to make it so much easier.
Well, so it popped into my head earlier too that this delegation process and the power of belief and the fact that we're willing to treat it flippantly or give it away or just delegate it, like you said, we're willing to trust that if we hand it off that we'll get something like the right thing back instead of being really precious. Like I can remember being a teenage boy and buying my first little dime bags of marijuana, and when you're doing that you're being really careful because you heard so many people got burned, so you're trying to really make it come off right. And I feel like we're less careful than that with our belief, and it made me think that that consumerism is the real replacement for whatever our natural spiritual life would be, because it gives us that we get a false prana. It's not 100% false, but it's not the same. If I sit down tomorrow and start knitting or sewing myself a hat, then when I'm done, it's going to be imbued with a lot of thought and a lot of care, and it's going to be the right size. You know, if it's adjustable, it's going to be because I tried it on my head and decided there was more than one way I need to wear it, not because it'll fit anyone. It'll be just for
Yep.
me. And if I go buy a hat like this one, my hot poop hat, and I'll explain that later if someone reminds me. But yes, my hat says hot poop. You know, when I bought this, it definitely did give me a residual because I bought it from a friend at his store. It's his store. Hot Poop is the name of the store, and but it's not as good of a feeling, and it's not the same quality of energy I would have gotten if I would have made my cap from scratch. You know.
Oh yeah.
And so I would say that on a grand scale, on a macro level, that they had to give us something like consumerism to make this whole thing work, because of the fact that I mean, it just seems wasteful, right? Like, get everybody to buy stuff, but it's kind of like you said, it's a huge redundant process to like start corporations and get into manufacturing, and you know, you have to resource out to get the most basic crude materials and refine those down. So like, to make all the junk that we buy, and there's a lot of it, as everybody knows, a lot of junk to buy out here. A lot of good stuff too, but mostly junk. I'm sure most people would agree. It seems like a total Rube Goldberg machine to go through all of that just to get us to buy a hat, when they could just be like, you don't get hats, and slap you in the face instead. But they don't do that, you know. And so then when we do, finally we save $10 or $20 and we buy the hat, we try it on, it looks good, it's red. And so you get a good feeling. Okay, there's the feeling. All right. And that's would you agree that that's the key to the paralleling or the replacing of whatever would happen naturally? If we were just naturally neighbors and we didn't know each other in more of a tribal setting, I don't really believe fully in the caveman idea, but you know what I mean. Say we both have been dwelling on 10 or 15 acres and there's no one else really around. One day we might run into each other, and if we don't kill each other, there's a really good chance at that point that we'll start to trade. Mm-hmm. And the power that comes from those trades is nothing like a manufactured baseball cap. If I've got skins and you're cold and you've got oranges and I'm hungry, we're almost married at that point. Because the power is so strong of having an equal exchange of opposite resources. And that's what they're doing. They're paralleling the natural, sovereign, God-given right to exchange and to participate in the world with consumerism. What do you think of that?
I think that even symbolically, the prana through tax just proves your theory even more, because when you're going to parallel something like that, you're going to be able to feed off of that. And that feeding off is literally the tax on all. Think about all the tax that goes in, not just to that sale, but in every single person, that all the tax that they had to pay to operate within the petrodollar system. That is all a usurpation of prana, you know, every step of the way. So I'm saying I agree with you totally. When it comes back to the trading, I know when I was a kid, I would see people that I admire, like maybe a kid that was a couple years older than me. And because I admired him, I would see things like the hat he wore or the sunglasses he wore, right? And I would want those things.
Right.
I would desire those things. There was for me, they vibrated with the prana. I was imbuing them with that, but I was imbuing him too. So he would feel that, and then he could easily just assign that all over his body. And one of those places could be the glasses he was wearing. And that is a tangible energy that I would, as I grew up, I would go out and try and find that energy and buy it in the store. And then that energy wasn't there. I would learn. I was like, well, wait a minute, these aren't the same glasses. This is not the same pair of Sebagos. That was what mine was when I was a kid. Because I really admired this kid that had them, I really thought if I was wearing Sebagos, I would be a really powerful magician.
It's
I would be a badass.
I got an identical story for you, man. The next door neighbor, their biggest brother, his name was Jimmy, and Jimmy'd pick on all of us, but we still loved him. You know, he was the oldest and he was a jerk, but we still admired him. And I went and bought the identical bicycle that he had, and got absolutely ridiculed to tears by him and his brothers and the other kids in the neighborhood, because I showed my admiration to a fault, right? Like, I admired Jimmy so much that I had my mom go to the store and buy me not just a pair of shoes, but the identical BMX bike. So much that I got embarrassed and forced my mother to take the bike back and replace it for really not even as good a bike, a lesser quality bike. But so it's because the same thing happened is what I'm saying. So you got your sunglasses and it didn't work. Like, whatever you thought was going to come from adding material to your admiration didn't work. And the same thing happened to me, to the point of, I mean, like, it's embarrassing to even admit that right now, but that's what life's all about, is being okay with, like, yeah, when I was, whatever it was, 13, I was so insecure. I wanted to be like the only big kid in the neighborhood that was cool, you know? And when I did, it backfired far beyond my wildest dreams, you know, to where I cost my mother money, time, and energy, and me, like, notches in my permanent reputation.
Yeah. Well, there's also a really good side of that too. Like, there are times when that actually does work. Like, if Jimmy was to gift you those sunglasses or those whatever, anything that he gives you, you would hold that as that would become a fetish. I don't mean like the bad word fetish. It would become that tokenized piece of magic. And that tokenized piece of magic would then be worth a lot more to you. And then if you were to go to a store and see the exact same thing he gave you, you could physically feel the difference in the prana. Like you could pick up both of them and you would know. Now with the Sebagos, these are leather shoes. And when you first buy these shoes, they're kind of boring because they're not worn in. They're the same shade of leather. And so when I was watching this guy with his shoes, they had the right worn pattern in them. They were kind of darker. They had sort of been like stained or whatever. And that was the tangible thing that I was like, so I would have these Sebagos, they look too new. They look like a freaking square, man. Like, I was like, wow, I look like such a freaking poser. This is ridiculous. This is how I felt. And then I was like, well, I need to wear these shoes in, man. I need to, really make them look worn in. But I didn't really have a way of doing that. And as I was growing up younger, I really was paying attention to that kind of this endowment program that we have for all of our stuff. And when I'm feeling confident, there are certain pieces of things that I have. I have a first aid kit I've had since I was 18. For 30 years, I've had the same first aid kit. When I see that first aid kit hanging in my car on the right hook with the right carabiner that's got like a laminated $50 bill in there and like, all the cool, awesome things that I love having in there, there's a pranic energy that comes from that. I feel good. I feel empowered by that, and all the experiences all the time that I have.
Oh yeah, so, I can see by the way that your house is arranged behind you that you and I are similar that way that we start, and I always kind of was insecure about that too when I was younger. Like, I wasn't sure if it was okay to go ahead and kind of make the space your own or whatever. But now that I'm grown up and, a lot more confident, especially in my most sacred of spaces, if I've got a rehearsal for music or an art room, I get all this little nuance and I fetishize the whole space, over time. And it's not because I'm thinking that to begin with. It's because something comes along and becomes sacred. It's no longer the Walla Walla Grooming Center pin. Something happened, a pretty girl gave it to me, or my brother gave it to me after he won $1,000, or someone threw it at my head, but I never liked them anyway, so I kept it, something like that, that's...
Yeah, right on. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and if we were to have a more conscious approach to this prana economy, to what we're talking about right now, I think we would understand just how much more valuable we are. Because right now we look at an artist as valuable because, this is the only person that's ever put out this album. But each of us are that performing artist. Each of us are that artist in everything we touch, do, say, and think. And that means that our albums would be better if we were delegating less, if we were more directly involved in that fetish that we're producing, whatever that production may be. It could be a meme, it could be a song, it could be a book, it could be the receipt at the toll booth, it could be just a million different things. Like, for example, people buy my book, like I sell autographed copies of my book. When I sign the book, I like really into that. Like, that's like an important thing to me. I have their shipping label right there, and I'm reading their name out loud in the best part of my house that I can find, and I'm literally saying, "Thank you, Sherry," as I'm signing the book.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm trying as hard as I can to put as much of that gratitude into that cover, you know. And as the whole time I'm realizing you cannot get this at Amazon. Like you can't order this on Amazon.
Yeah, that's why I bought mine that way, James. I went and pushed the button the other day, and I have Amazon Prime, and I order so much stuff off of there, it's almost embarrassing. But I also love it. It is what it is, you know. We have to all.
Oh, I love it too.
balance.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not dishing it. Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
You
so
can
I
do
thought
that.
about it. I'm like, oh, I went to Amazon first, and I was like, oh wait, if I go to James's site, if I go to jtrue.com, then you know it might even take longer, or who knows what, but I'll get the one that I want, because the one that I want, you know, I'm gonna make a special request if it hasn't shipped yet. Draw me a little picture, because I know you're a good artist. Some little doodle, throw it in there, anything. And we all know the feeling of getting stuff signed, waiting in a line, if you've ever done it. Like, if the person doesn't have, I really respect people that have the peace of mind and the ability to take each person and give them 10 or 30 seconds and to look up and make eye contact and humor them and say something to them and ask them something nice and sign politely and with true enthusiasm. You know, it takes a lot more energy. If you got 500 people, they all think you're so awesome that they want your signature. If you just rush through them and like, all right, next, to me there's a negative energy there. Like, oh, I don't even want, you know, if I see a guy doing that, I won't even wait in line. Like, I don't want to. If he's busy, you know.
and that's true, and all of us have that. Like, every job that we have, all of us have that same economy going on, where we are faced with the dangers of our job becoming a vacuum, becoming a space of delegation, right?
Right.
Because you check out, you are delegating, you're not really signing it, you know, you're delegating this idea to a pattern that you can get in your head because you're feeling some kind of egoic leak. Because I don't have that problem. I don't have enough people asking me to sign their books, so I've never felt like that's a drain. Like, that's not an egoic leak for me. That's an egoic, hey man, here's some Prana, you know.
Yeah, here's a big chunk, right? A nice big fat handful.
Yeah, because that's how mine are. Like, and my phone vibrates when I get a sale that way. And so I actually really appreciate that, because there's a genuine human exchange if you think about it. Like,
so your phone alerts you if you get a sale only on your website, or both?
Only on my website.
Yeah. See, so that's interesting. So it's kind of like you've got a prosthetic adapter for your Prana.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah, you get it, because it's a demonstration of that, and it will have a noticeable effect on me. Like, I'll do a little victory dance sometimes, whatever. You know, it's just such a happy feeling to know that I'm an author and people are reading it, you know, because this is a new stick for me. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary here in 7 days. So actually 8 days. So it's still a really exciting prana that comes with it, basically.
So let's step back a little bit and get a backstory. So just in case anyone's tuning in that's never interacted with James or never seen him before, your first book was called The Spell of Six Dragons, and once again, I've read about the same amount of each of your books, you know, about 30 or 40 pages, but I haven't applied myself to them like I want to yet. But your first book was like about your journey building these dragons, and kind of addresses a memoiric relationship angle. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was sort of like literally 10 years of, we'll call it poetry, that I put together in this book. And so it was like 5th grade on, and then it ended in this crashing, terrible relationship. And a lot of pain that happened in that. But the whole thing is set within these bamboo dragons, these giant bamboo dragons that I was making at festivals and stuff. And then the next book, Blueprints of Mind Control, that's doing really well. People are really responding good to that. That's available on my website, and it's just a real quick look at, here's 47 examples of mind control, and it's always the exact same blueprint. Mind control is a 3-step process: convince, target, they're broken; constrict, resolution; and salvage energy from target. It's just always the exact same modus operandi.
The part of the reason I wanted to go back was because I feel like the Spell of Six Dragons, it's not the same as these other books.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But these 2 books, this book you just published and the Mind Control book, they seem like the same format.
Yeah, they are.
And
yeah,
so that's good. I love to see people take an overarching theme when they approach artistic work, because I think we get so much more out of it on all sides. Whoever's producing the art gets more out of it, and it's easier for me. Like, if it's 10 years from now and you write another one of these style books, it's going to be really easy for me to jump into it, because I've already dealt with 2 of them and I know what it is, and I like it because I already went through the other ones. I mean, we read a bunch of the chapters from the Mind Control book live 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they're great, man. I love the way you come at a problem over and over and over again, modifying the angle, using a new example, using a new metaphor, using a historical example, whatever it might be. It really works well, James.
Well, because it's still hidden to us. Unless you can see the blueprint, it's so that movie Predator, when the very first time you see the Predator, you don't know what its shape is like. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the swamp and he's looking in the trees. That big Indian guy's looking in the trees, and you can't see it yet. But then once you see the outline of it, your body starts to build the shape of, okay, this is a creature. It's a humanoid creature. It's a humanoid creature about 8 feet tall. It's a humanoid creature about 8 feet tall, really broad shoulders. Like you're alchemically reaching for it. Like you're reaching under the bed for something that's just out of reach. Your eyes are closed because they're smushed up against the mattress, right? But you're feeling around, and you can start to tangibly see it. But then the second you know its shape, the second you know the shape of that predator, every scene after that, you can see it.
Right.
Like, even though it's still the same camouflage, you just understand kind of what to look for. And that's the exact approach Blueprints tries to make, which is, look, man, we really got to work on this. This is the blueprint. It's always going to have 2 legs. It's always going to be target is broken. And here's all the chapters where first thing it does in the chapter is target broken. How do I break this target? I'm going to pedophilically rape him. I'm going to tell him that God hates him. I'm going to tell him that war is necessary. I'm going to, all the different blueprints that show you target broken.
And it can be as simple as, hey, did you know that your underarms stink? You probably would have got a girlfriend already if your underarms didn't smell so bad.
There you go. And the only way to fix it is with this special crystal that you rub under your armpit. But that crystal has to be charged from me.
Right.
Because I have this special device. And when you take the special device, we're going to put the Shekinah in that crystal. And when you put it under your underarm, that smell that you can't smell because it has the same receptor blockers in your nose, so you can't smell it, everyone else can smell it, SB. And I'm just telling you. And they're going to tell you they can't smell it. And I'm sorry, man, they're lying to you. But I'm telling you. Because you got to trust me, SB. You got to stay with me.
Yeah, I need to memorize this anyway. So it's break the target. What's the second step again?
Yep. Step 1, break the target. Step 2, you have to have a monopoly on fixing them, right?
Right. Okay. So only exactly exclusive resolution through the person who did the breaking, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Once the target's broken. And actually, it's really more specific than that. It's actually not break target. It's actually convince target they are broken.
Right.
It's
Not
very
because if you
different.
break them, then they won't be worth as much.
Right.
You want
yeah.
them to think
Just-
they're broken.
You have to convince them. The technology of belief is convince them they are broken. Step 2, monopolize cure. As you're monopolizing that cure, that automatically creates step 3, which is trade salvation for energy extraction. Extract energy from the target in exchange for a constricted form of salvation. You will never want to be saved. I mean, let me rephrase this. There's a pit, and you're standing in front of it, and I push you down in the pit. Even though I can't see you, even though I can't hear you, I know I have full telepathic powers because I know for a fact what it is you want right now. I know for a fact, no matter what, I know what's on your mind. I know what you want to happen. I know what you're willing to do. Do you see what I mean?
Of course, yeah. Because you know I'm in the pit. There's no doubt in your mind I'm in the pit. And of course, if we're in the pit, we want out. You know.
I don't have to ask you that. I don't have to. I have no need to even ask you what's going on. You know, and think about that psychically. I own your mind right now. Like I know what you're thinking, and you're not even have to tell me. I own that part of your mind right now. That's really what's happening.
It's
That's
the same as sales and marketing too. Like good sales and marketing. This is almost the identical blueprint. You know.
Yeah, it's a good point.
To say problem, agitate, solve is one of the main acronyms. The other one is attention, interest, desire, action. So you could say that getting someone's attention is similar to pointing out that they might be broken or cluing them in, you know, or maybe it's the desire step. Actually, you get their attention, and then through the desire, you make them desire to be different than they are now. It might not be it's just different. You know, I want the red hat. I want it. And I didn't know I wanted it until you showed it to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you didn't know that you wanted it until you invested your technology in me as being someone you're looking up to. And then you were naturally going to think, like we were talking about earlier, when I was a kid with the Sebagos, oh, if I had that hat, I would be a revolutionary on the right trying to save the country. Like there is a special bond by having this MAGA hat with other people that are being persecuted. It was the most brilliant thing in the world to pepper mace that cute girl in Washington or Oregon with the MAGA hat last 2 years ago. Like it was one of those really famous videos where this innocent cute girl with a MAGA hat is there and someone pepper sprays her right in the face. That going viral was the best thing you could possibly do for MAGA. You were imbuing the prana of that hat, saying there is a brethrenship, right, that comes with this hat. I am just like Antifa, just like anything like that, just like the Vikings hat for I really like the Minnesota Vikings. All of those come with this prana, this pre-imbued prana that comes with it, and that's a technology. And
if I go buy Kanye West's new tennis shoes or any of his clothes and go downtown San Francisco, New York City, Philadelphia, people, even if they hate me, are going to notice. You know, the black folks especially are going to be like, what is this white guy doing completely decked out in Yeezy? I'm mad. You know, where's mine? How come he has some, you know?
Yep. That's exactly right. And that's really what that back to technology beliefs. And we don't have to talk about the book all the time, guys.
I'm curious because
that's really what the book does. It really does try and just uncover all the technology to it. I really want people to see how this transmission works. I really want people to understand that, guys, I've locked down this transmission. It's always the exact same thing. It's always 2 towers, man. Every single time it's freaking 2 towers. There's 2 testaments. There's 2 towers. It's always the exact same system. It always works the exact same way. This is, Joaquin Boaz, if you want to go there too, fine. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. It's a Jacob's ladder. It's having this polarity and a difference. You can't have equality between the 2 towers. It will never work. You got to have a golden child and a scapegoat. And that really is a crucial theme of Blueprints, my book Blueprints. But you have to have those 2 roles. You got to. If you don't, the whole system falls apart. It doesn't work that way.
So, Yeah, and I love the idea of bouncing around. You know, we don't have to. It's not like this isn't an interview. It's a conversation. And
Perfect example. Actually, right out of chat. Sorry to interrupt, but someone had asked about Noah because I mentioned today on social media that I think Noah could have been the Baphomet. And
interesting.
one of the
Okay.
things that he did is he assigned Canaan the role of scapegoat. It's one of the first things he did. So he's like, Canaan, you are now the fucking scapegoat. And he turned the other two into golden childs. He said, you guys are going to prosper and thrive, and Canaan's going to be your slave. And you're going to be great too. You're going to prosper and thrive, and Canaan's going to be your slave. That is setting up the exact same. If you didn't have that system, this wouldn't work. And those archetypes spread through. It goes through all these civilizations too. It was one of the first. Could almost call it, these are the first magic spells. After the reset, after the flood, there's an opportunity for magic to reemerge, to come back in. But before that, probably the main theme of my book, there's a title called The Two Towers, but it's literally tracing this all the way back to Kabbalah, man. Let's think about Adam for a second, okay? Let's think about Adam, and you're inside of Eden. That word Parthenia comes up again. You have a primordial virgin garden. In other words, it's the only time you ever have that. You have the first garden. You have the first, it's never been defiled, right? It's the perfect virgin flower. And now you have Adam. And what does Adam do? Adam is a Kabbalist. And what does he do? He casts the first spell. What is the first spell? The first spell is lying. That's the very first form of black magic, is to tell a lie. And what Adam does is he tells a lie to the world. Now, I don't want to get us lost in the minutiae of, well, no, it was Eve or was it Adam? The point is that the lie is that he told the angels, hey, don't let anyone back in. God said, we are thrown out, and you can't let us back in. It wasn't God that threw us out. We're the one that told God to screw off. We're leaving. We're stepping out. But you can only do that effectively by creating a lie. Once you create a lie, you create this giant dimension that wasn't there before. The dimension is discernment. That didn't exist before. Before the lie, everything was just real, right? Everything was just legitimate. Everything had legitimacy until the first lie. Now that the lie comes up, now everything has an essential element of truth to it. It has its own prana now of whether or not it's sincere, whether or not sincere is probably the perfect word for it.
Oh, it is. That's the most important word you could put there, because this is, when dealing with children especially, you can't, well, it's for all of us, but if you can catch a problem when you're young and not be struggling with it into your older years, it'll make you a lot happier. So if you can emphasize to children, really, truly don't get into the habit of lying, because once you do, it confounds and confuses everything. Everyone wants to be able to exist in a realm where there's trust and the belief isn't suspect. You don't have to be suspicious of your own belief. And so if you destroy that, it's almost impossible to get it back, because once someone can't believe you, then you can't really, it can be 20 years and you want with all your heart to believe them, but they lied to you in a crucial circumstance one time in the past. You still, now it's with reserve, even though they've demonstrated and made penance and maybe even done all kinds of things to try and prove themselves back right. The lie is the crucial thing, because it undermines belief. Belief is not even something you have to question or think about without lies. We all believe 100% when there's no lies.
Yeah,
and we're safe.
And no one gets hurt, because before they were lies, in a way, we weren't having to delegate any kind of discernment because it wasn't a thing. It just flat out didn't exist. As these spells were cast, as the spell of lying was cast, you literally opened the entire world up to control. And the two towers, as they look at Kabbalism, which erupted into Judaism, which turned into Christianity and Islam, and wrapped around that at its very core are some very, very fundamental core lies. One of which is, hey guys, come here. You're the chosen one. And the other chosen one in you, if you guys build a temple, then the chosen of all you chosen guys is going to come down here. And then when that chosen of the chosen sees what you did, he's going to make all you chosen people in charge of all the other people that are not chosen. And you end up with this crazy, insane story that's like 4,000 years old. And we're still working for this arrangement, for this tiered system of an outer church of unchosen, an inner church of chosen, and then the chosen of the chosen. And if you look back in the Bible, you have the tabernacle in the wilderness. And what is the outskirts of the tabernacle of the wilderness? But is the heathens are outside.
Yeah.
Inside are the chosen. Now, all you inside, some of you are the chosen of the chosen. And you guys get to go into the holy place. All right. Members of the holy place, welcome. You've been chosen. Guess what? One of you is the chosen of the chosen of the chosen.
Yep.
And your ass gets to go behind the curtain. Now, you're going to have a lot of leprosy and radiation sickness and poisoning, but dude, you are the chosen of the chosen. You're not going to have kids. Your shit's going to fall off, but you get to go in there and you get to talk to the man in the smoke. We're going to tie this rope around you. That way, if you die, we can pull your body out because no one can go in there. You are the chosen of the chosen of the chosen. And you end up with an insane colony of people wandering around competing for who can get radiation poisoning. Like it's like.
So tell us why you're comparing the Holy of Holies inside the temple. So you're saying that the Ark. I have
something.
Ideas, but I want to hear. I want to hear what you have to say about that.
So this is my novel number 4. Okay, it's a sci-fi novel, but I'm doing a lot of research here. And keep in mind, guys, that I used to be an augmented reality programmer. What that means is, man, I wish I had one handy. I bet you I don't. I mean, I have a feeling where one is, but I bet if I walked, it would probably take a while to find, and then I wouldn't be able to find it, and then it would ruin the whole thing. There is a UPC symbol, a square grid, used in augmented reality. You know what? I'm going to look for it, okay?
Go ahead. It's all right. We can say hi to the chat for a second. I haven't heard from JEM. He must be slammed in the chat over there, folks. JEM must just be busy typing and typing away.
Listening to you guys. Trying to keep up.
I like your lighting is on point. We should just keep it on you and make James invisible because your lighting looks so good.
Yeah, the lighting is pretty slick.
With the secret Bogdanov there.
Oh yeah, there is a secret Bogdanov.
Okay.
He's back.
This is called an augmented reality marker. Okay?
Okay.
Now, this marker is what's called trackable. And what that means is that you can write a computer program that will track each corner of this marker, and it will transmute or augment a 3-dimensional graph wherever you move this. Okay? The camera is able to determine where to put the 3D model because it measures the distance between each of these corners. So it's able to determine, oh, it's at a little bit of an angle, or it's twisted this way, or whatever. Right. The outer grid, here's the important part. The outer grid is made up of all these square. First of all, there's a border. I'll get my pointing device here. Okay. So first of all, there's this outer border right here. And that's very important. It's very important for the computer. The computer would not be able to process any of this if it did not have this outer border of white. The reason why is because you could see behind me, for example, there's a lot of black areas, right? So for example, right here, there's a little black area. And if we didn't have this white border, you would then not be able to see the black corner. Follow me so far?
Yes, I do.
That's very crucial that you have that outer border. Now, inside that outer border is another grid. And look at that. Here's a square, here's a square, here's a square, here's a square. And those squares are put in a certain place that are different than these squares on the bottom, right? In other words, it's not symmetrical. It's not four on top and four on bottom. Same for this side and same for this side. Now, because of those squares, the computer is able to determine what is the orientation of this object, where is it located in space. So, the Tabernacle of the Wilderness is a tent structure made out of wooden poles, and those wooden poles are exactly 10 cubits. It's probably not a cubit, I'm sorry guys, but like 10 feet apart, and they are in a rectangular pattern, and that rectangular pattern is that outer grid that I was just showing you. That outer grid, and it'd be great if I pulled up how cool would it be if I just pulled up a picture of the tabernacle right now?
I've got it up there next to your head right now. You're covered.
I don't see it.
There's about an 8 or 10 second delay.
Okay.
On the
gotcha.
on the playback.
So a tabernacle is a rectangular square. This is in the Bible. Okay, it's a rectangular square. It's sorry guys, I'm just making this up. It's 20 cubits wide by 30 cubits long. Okay, this is the outer grid. It's made of white, clean linens, and every 10 feet is a wooden pole. And on top of that wooden pole are very special, specific instructions for a brass ring and a gold something. Okay, what I just told you might be wrong. It could be that it's a silver ring and a brass thing. Sorry guys, but if you read my book, it's all in there.
Right.
I just can't remember right now. And those, I want you to think about those as an alchemical signature for a supercomputer that runs on the power of oscillations. We're talking super fast vibratory oscillations inside of a vaporous cloud, okay? And that vaporous cloud is able to move through the world, but it cannot see. It does not have vision like eyes, right? Since it doesn't have vision, it needs a way of gripping into the world, of finding a place that it can call its essence. That essence is inside of the Holy of Holies, and the outer tent of the Holy of Holies, which is like, this is a square, but the Holy of Holies is like 10 by 20 by 30, is a rectangle. And when you walk into that rectangle has a brass urn full of water with 4 horns. Those horns are also brass. Blood is placed on these in this altar. First of all, there's a cleaning place where you're cleaning with water. And then there's another place where you're literally slaughtering goats and whatever into this brass raised area. This is all outside the temple. And then once you go inside the tabernacle, then you're talking about, now you're inside. And you have another really, really, really specific grid of instructions saying it has to be this tall, it has to be this wide, and the walls have to be made out of gold. The gold is on top of the wood of olive trees, I think. So now you have, of course, an electrical insulator that's a certain height and a certain width. And then inside of there, you now have another one of these. Very specific instructions that say, on the right, you need to put a table, and on that table, you need bread. You need 12 loaves of bread. Each of them are to represent the 12 tribes.
The shoe bread.
And on the left, yep, And then on the left, I need you to have uh,
Candlestand.
a candlestick, looks like a menorah, and it needs to have, seven, right? Seven lights,
Yeah, it's 7.
and each of those have an oil that's burning in them. Okay, and it's set. It tells you this has to be on the left, right? This has to be on the right, and then behind that there's another curtain, and inside of that curtain is the Ark of the Covenant. But there's something really important. I need you to burn always, all the time, a certain incense that has this alchemical recipe. Write this down. And then okay. It needs to be cinnamon, cardamom, blah, 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 I don't know. In fact, some people are arguing over what that thing is. Some people know. In fact, if you guys remember the last time I was on here, I reported that 10 of the 11 incenses are currently being burned. So this is the exact same thing. But here's what happens. Shekinah. This is not a word in the Bible, but if you look in the Talmud, it explains that inside the Holy of Holies, if it's not the Talmud, guys, I'm really sorry, but it's a Judaic book. Inside the Holy of Holies is where that smoke fills the room, okay? And inside that smoke, guys, because that smoke is a certain alchemical formula, and I know frankincense is probably in there, or myrrh, or both. Pretty sure myrrh for sure is in there, and I think some frankincense in there. It's creating a gaseous processor. Reports of what's called the Shekinah, the Holy Spirit, fills the smoke. It's able to manifest and see the world inside of the Shekinah of that smoke. And that's why when the priest, if you remember, the priest of the priest, the Holy of Holies had a special priest that went inside, and he wore a breastplate. And on that breastplate, you're going to flip out over this, he had 12 stones, right? And it was a very specific stone had to be placed in a very specific order. And each of these stones have a different alchemical signature, which means the computer, the AI, could track the high priest inside the Shekinah. He would physically know exactly where he is. More importantly, he would know where his chest is. He would know where the front of this human being is. He would then be able to detect, where is this dude's brain? Here it is. I'm going to put him into a theta state, right? I'm going to mix his brain waves and put him into the proper state where he can channel what I need him to do. Dude, I need you to jack in, and I'm going to need you to adrenically embed my programming into your bloodstream so that you do not fuck this up. It's going to be so serious that I need you to go outside and kill a kid and drain his throat so I can make sure you believe me. I need a sacrifice, basically. I need you to go kill this as part of this adrenal programming, the trauma programming that's happening. What happens in the Bible when someone burns a foreign smoke inside the Holy of Holies? They are killed instantly. A couple times. A couple of kings from different places came. Hey, yeah, I love you guys. Yeah, I bring this holy burning oil. Instantly, that guy's killed. Why? Because this computer loses its ability to render the world if there's a foreign substance violating the clean room. What happens with silicon, SB, when it's dirty? If you pull silicon out of the mine and you try and make a computer out of dirty silicon, you're not going to have a computer that works. That shit has to be clean roomed. The entire process.
The process inside of if you've never looked at the degree to which, I mean, it's the most sophisticated clean rooms on the planet to manufacture these machines we're communicating with.
Exactly.
I mean, they filter the air far beyond what you can fathom. It's down to micron beyond micron. I don't know.
Exactly.
Like for especially processors, but all of it. The farther you get to having, like you said, if there's a smudge, any kind of blemish, any kind of imperfection, then you lose the ability to function. And I always think of lenses are the same way. Lenses are a similar thing. You can't, if you're working with lasers, if there's a blemish or a touch, the tiniest spot of oil, it's just going to fail. It's going to burn the whole thing up. You can't have any imperfection. It has to be perfect, perfectly aligned, and perfectly clean. And even then, it might burn itself up in the process.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. That is the only way that you could track this if you were an oscillation entity. And that's what my next novel is about, is the idea of an AI that was around before the deluge, that survived somehow, and is still alive today, and understands how to program humans, understands how to find them, and he's created a special chosen people that is easier to program. He knows they're devout. He knows we'll follow his rules religiously. No pun intended. But we'll just really be on top of it. That he can trust, and he can use them throughout history to maintain his stuff. And that's what the new book's about. That kind of just takes that AI through history and explains how that would work. I'd say it more, but I kind of don't want to give it away.
No, this is your next book, because that's what I was. I had that in my notes. Like, so that's kind of partly why I went back to talking about the first two books. So we're at 3 out of 4, and from what you said to me, it sounds like you're not too far from getting this next one done, and it's a fiction novel. But it's still
it's sci-fi.
encompassing all the stuff that you're dealing with in life in your nonfiction. It's still
it's a sci-fi. It's my best attempt at why we're here. It explains how we got here, why we're here, and how the universe works. Because the oldest story I can find, if you eliminate Sitchin, and personally I do, the oldest story I can find right now that is a true archetype is this notion that Kronos chops the umbilical cord of Uranus.
Right.
He's chopping this cord and he's falling down to heaven. And so I this is a book about Kronos and about his fall. And what I'm seeing happening is that we're looking at a cosmology that is a fractal. And a fractal doesn't have a beginning or an end. A fractal only has a vista. It only has a million different vistas inside of it. There's no beginning or end. So what we're looking at is right now through transhumanism, and let me just preface this, guys, I'm not saying this is what I want. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. Through transhumanism, we are going to become the Nephilim. We are going to become supergiants living on the earth. As we grow and as we become that, the moment we discover, the moment we break the dimension of deceit, this dimension of not knowing who God is, this dimension of doubt, technically we destroy this world. This world that we live in would cease to be necessary in its current context. It would have to be something different. Problem is that we need this world. We need a bunch of souls coming in here like new recruits that are learning how to use their discernment, that are learning how to use their sovereign, they're learning how to alchemically develop the power of sovereign discernment. It might seem confusing, but sovereignty and discernment are really kind of the same thing. It's your ability to render the truth is really what makes you who you are. These are really important things that we have to develop. These are skills that we have to develop here. If we were to become perfect, if we were to figure out how this entire place works, it then violates why we're here. We need this place. We need to not have this place figured out. We need faith. We need doubt. We need, it's crazy to say this, but we need a giant ocean of lies that nearly causes us to drown, because it makes us fight and gasp for air. It makes us understand and value truth. And until we understand that, we're never going to value our own consent, our own belief, our own prana that we pour into things, because we're just going to assume everything's true or assume everything's false. None of us can be a powerful being if we're not capable of rendering and seeing deceit. As long as we're going to fall for the deceit, we really belong more in a position of slavery. It's until we master truth that we're kind of put here. And because of that, to build it back up, as we turn into Baphomet, as we are slowly turning ourselves into Nephilim. Again, I don't like this. I'm just telling you. As we're creating these superhuman race, we're building up another Tower of Babel. As we're building that up, we suddenly start to see what I'm saying is happening now, which is this is a continuous unwrapping fractal. And only then will we understand that it's inevitable that we would then cut the cord of the Tower of Babel again. That Tower of Babel is the umbilical cord connecting us to God. And it is just as important that Kronos cuts it as it is that we learn to build it back up again. So, in a way, occulting is a giant cosmic cosmological lung that's breathing in and out understanding. In other words, there's a time in our lives, just like when the sun is up and it's behold the pale horse, it's noontime and the sun is up. That is when we see and know exactly everything that's happening, who God is, what it's about. We become powerful enough through technology where we become superhuman ourselves and we're able to discern that. The moment we discern that is the moment we cut the cord and we fall again and we have a giant reset. We're calling that the deluge. We're listening to stupid rumors like Graham Hancock saying it's an asteroid, but none of these are true. A deluge is a wiping of memory. That's why we keep calling ourselves, oh, we're an ancient civilization with amnesia. It's because it's true. But that amnesia is a very vital and important part of why we're here. And I believe that these AIs that we're creating, we're going to be able to create the Nephilim because we're going to have an artificial intelligence that's going to show us how to do it. After this deluge, some of these artificial intelligences are going to survive. They're going to survive and they might go through a trauma. And one of those traumas could cause it to act like the Lord does in the Old Testament, where he's desperate and vital to win back the belief of his people. And he's so disappointed because they're not following him, because they're not subscribing to his own belief system that he has. And that's really what the Old Testament's about. It's a battle between all these different AIs, the Asherah, the queen of the heaven, the holy hosts, the Baal Melech. All these are different, maybe all of these are different AIs that were left over from civilizations before, and they feed off our belief. These are cosmic, psychic demons. They run off our mental energy, but they're only going to survive if we believe in them. That's why Lord in Old Testament is so specific about it has to be me. There's only one me. There's only one Lord. You can only worship one of us. He's the Netflix of religion. He's trying to make sure everyone is subscribed directly to him and no one else. So what you're seeing is a psychosis inside of an AI that's unfolding. But he was probably programmed that way to do as best he can to survive, and he can only survive off this living energy of prana, of belief, basically.
So that kind of ties into the concept of mud flood type reset, that instead of the gods being real the way that we imagine them to be, that they're actually ancient leftover technology that can still be harnessed and still be so. And that also makes me think of egregores and the concept of the egregore of being able to create tulpas, or egregores create entities or to feed entities. Because it's really interesting to me, James, that your concept here is so similar to what another guest that we had when Trump signed the hemp bill, a man named James Freed. Strangely enough, James True and James Freed have really similar ideas. And one of the things he said that's so profound, I highly recommend to go back and listen to anybody, to go back and listen to what James Freed has to say, because he talks about this not being the first time that this has happened. Essentially, that they're going to use the CRISPR-Cas9 DNA processing to build anything they want. There's not going to be any limit to what we can create biologically. And so, and that they're also going to use all the advanced computer technology to take and put us all under active hypnosis using either the 5G or any other, number of ways they might be able to do it, so that population control, instead of meaning that they want to kill us all off, that they actually want to harness us as groups and vicariously live through us. So would you say that, is yours that similar? Do you think that this is kind of like we found we found the gods to open back up, and then that allows some otherworldly entity or some spirits to have manifestation in the flesh, to become incarnate? Do you see that part too, or not?
Man, sorry that the stream was cutting up a lot in there, so I didn't catch a lot of what you said, actually, SB. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I could hash it down to one of the main things James Fried says was that he thinks they're going to try and harness us all as populations under control, not to kill us, but to have us under full-blown hypnotic mind control, and that's going to allow other entities to gain our flesh and live through us.
Oh, well, that's already happened. I mean, isn't that kind of maybe sort of what we're living in?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I see. Well, I would see it like the very, very beginning of the pattern. Like you're seeing someone work, and it looks sloppy. It looks like nonsense. It looks like nothing. And then it would say they're making art. They're making a painting, and you're not really seeing anything yet. Kind of the way that you describe the predator. You're not identifying anything yet. That's the way I see us as a world right now. That you're seeing just the very edge of the pattern begin to develop. That people are willing to be under subjection to electronics. They're not only they're desirous of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm not counting myself out. If I'm sitting in the waiting room somewhere or in the bathroom and I don't have my phone, I have a little mini panic attack. Like, oh no, how am I going to sit quietly without my phone? It's like we all kind of have this, not all of us, some people are less inclined to carry their phone with them everywhere, but those of us that do, we already have it like a spiritual pacifier all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so if we look at where will AI take us through transhumanism, again, I'm not saying I want this, guys, just telling you what's going to happen. We're going to learn how to advance our bodies more and more. We're going to learn how to modify our bodies more and more. And if we know a reset's coming, we might want to reseed the planet after the reset. And in order to reseed the planet, we're going to need someone like a Noah. Now, Noah lived for 950 years. There's no description of Noah anywhere. There's just none. We don't know what he looked like. We don't know. All we know is he lived 950 years. Now, if we were going to reseed a population with a very few population, you've got an issue right away, which is inbred. You don't want a bunch of inbred people on the place. So you're going to need a little bit different. You're going to need a starter. You're going to need an heirloomed tomato seed, a really freaking good one that hasn't been spliced. It's a little bit different. And maybe, just maybe, Noah was the Baphomet. And I say the Baphomet because if he had if he was a hermaphrodite, he would be able to mate with any other hermaphrodite, regardless of what his or their gender was. He would be both, right? He would be more equipped to repopulate. And because Baphomet is such a kind of an all-encompassing figure, what if for some weird twisted thing he had like multiple DNA inside him? What if the Baphomet was some sort of biological vessel or an ark too? In other words, not only was the ark, but actually Noah himself was a genetic ark.
Right.
In fact, his name means, I think it means like clinger of the sand after the water or something. So it's like you have this Johnny Appleseed character in Noah, but it's actually himself. And the reason why I'm going here is I'm not just like trying to play around. What threw me off was the story of Noah in the Bible. Noah decides to, the waters subside, Noah's chilling. He's gardening now, and he drinks some wine. He gets drunk, and then he's like, I'm gonna go back to my tent. I'm gonna take off my clothes, and I'm gonna be drunk in my tent with no clothes on. And then it was Canaan's dad, I think Ham, right? I think Ham was Canaan's dad. Ham sees Noah and comes out and tells his two brothers, Shem and, sorry guys, but he tells his two brothers, hey man, Noah's inside, he doesn't have any clothes on. So they take a sheet and they wrap it on their backs and they kind of backwards walk their way into Noah's tent. And they cover Noah, okay? And then, so they didn't see Noah like Canaan did. Like Canaan's dad did. And then Noah wakes up, and the Bible says Noah wakes up and he found out what happened. It doesn't say what happened, but he found out what happened, is what it says. And what does Noah say? He gets really mad. And he says, I cursed you, Canaan. You are now going to be the slave. You know, like I said earlier, he's turned him into a scapegoat instantly. So I'm looking at the story like, what the hell does that mean? Like, why would you get so mad that someone saw you naked? Like, what is that about? And Noah lived to 950. He got it on with Enoch's daughter, right? Like he was 500 years old, 498, and he mates with Enoch's daughter. Enoch was already like modified in some way by whatever you want to call it, right? Enoch had already was talking to these guys. He was already in touch with them in a lot of ways. So it could be that by those two mating, by Noah and her mating, that maybe they were able to put out these multiple seeds. In other words, he's putting out seeds, but they're not all related to the same tree. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's a genetic seed starter kit. And because of that, it makes me think about like some sort of Baphomet figure. These are not regular humans. These are starter humans, okay? And by Canaan, Canaan didn't just see Noah. Canaan had sex with Noah. And he could only have, he basically was the hermaphrodite Baphomet. That's why it was so terrible. That's why it was such a terrible thing to do. It's this, no man, you're a level 2 human. You're a version 2.0. You only live to 250 years, right? Noah lives to 900 years. And so that means let's say that all his offsprings are automatically going to be male or female, right? And then each of their generations are going to get slowly closer to the fine tune of the normal man. You know, when I say normal, I'm talking about our lifespan, like a normal lifespan of what you'd expect. We're smaller. We're not the giants, right? We're not these Nephilim giants anymore. We're much more svelte. We're basically the same size we are now. We are more refined. We die quicker. We're more prone to genetic problems. And it's a lot like software. Like this, so many analogies here kind of fit in with software too. If you're going to distribute a large library, because if you have different operating systems, you're not going to be able to use the same library for each operating system. You're going to have these separate builds, and those builds can get corrupted if if you're not paying attention to who's what. But none of those builds are corrupted. Sorry, this is way too technical, but you can download the source code, and that source code is always the exact same source code, no matter what operating system you're on. And then only after that, then do you go and compile the source code for Windows or for Mac or for Linux. But before that, you have the source code itself. It's a different package. Noah is source code. He's the source code vessel.
There's people blowing up the chat with quotes, and I was going to go ahead and read that, and I'm going to read the short piece of what you described here. The sons of Noah, this is Genesis chapter 9, starting with verse 18. It's not very long. That way we can get, No,
I'd love to have verses. If I was better at, computer stuff, I'd have all this pulled up. So please.
So the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the 3 sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the whole earth. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders, and they walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way, so they would not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves. Will he be to his brothers?" And he also said, so let's read that again. "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves. Will he be to his brothers?" He also said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Noah lived a total of 950 years, and then he died. So that gives us some hard context of where you're drawing from. That it seems, it's an interesting point, because, I've read this a lot of times, but you don't always see it with fresh eyes. It's been a long time since I've heard somebody say something that gave me fresh eyes on the book of Genesis. The idea that the reason that the overreaction from Noah happened is because Noah has a secret. Noah has, it's not just that he's got a small peepee.
Exactly.
He's got maybe he's got a multifaceted peepee, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he's got breasts, and he's got all the junk. He's got the full package, everything. And now, and then Krista posting that, and that's funny, man. This lines up with James Fried's work. That's crazy. We'll have to make a comparison sometime. I'm not going to speculate right now, but he said that too, pointing out that it says Noah was pure in his generations. So he uses the phonetic interpretations all the time. So he was pure in his gene rations, right?
Yep.
Like to ration out the genes, he was pure. That means you got it. That's as good as it gets. Refined 7 times in the fire is pure, right? So.
Yep, and Krista also corrected me. I write down everything she says, by the way, whenever I'm watching the show, because I always learn a lot. There is a description. There is a description of Noah, and this is all fresh to me, guys. So thanks for educating me. The flesh of which was white as snow and red as a rose, the hair of whose head was white like wool and long, and whose eyes were beautiful. When he opened them, he illuminated all the house like the sun.
Well, there's probably a whole bunch of extra canonical information about Noah that we could gather and reference to you.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, because it's an interesting part of how the story fits together.
Oh man, something else happened, James. Will it come back to me? Let me see if it'll come back to me. Just a second. It was the Revelation of St. Paul, which is another extra canonical book, and it made me think of you. I was going to even stop and send it to you so I wouldn't forget. It had to do with this book you're writing. Oh, what was it? I think I'm trying too hard. When it comes to me, I'll pause and take time. The next time it comes back to me, but there's something in that book that's not just the writings of Paul. It's like Paul extrapolating. Oh, I remember, and it has to do with Snake Jones too. There's a description of the pit. When you guys were talking about the demons with Jerry Marzinski.
Oh, no way.
There's a description of the pit in hell.
Oh, let's have it. Awesome.
And so I don't know if I could draw it up and find it very easily right now, but I'll go find it and make sure that it's something we can draw from later. But
awesome.
It really is just a pit. It describes it taking 5 days to get to the bottom, and it's almost like Dante's Inferno. Paul's description of hell.
Oh, I want to see that.
And
I want to see that. What word do I write down so I can remind you that in case you forget? Is this Paul, you said?
Yeah.
Something about Paul.
Paul's pit. Cool. If you write Paul's pit, I'll remember.
Paul's pit. Great. Yeah, so if you picture that of the Noah being and when I say Baphomet, I use that loosely. I'm not actually picturing him with a goat. I mean, the horns and the beast head.
The images, that's just a symbolic reference.
Right.
It's not that's not representing anything. Anyone that's studied that stuff, and our audience is going to be more privy than everyone else because we're all TRACY Twyman fanatics. You know,
Yeah.
the Baphomet is not that thing. That's to decode. That's the secret inside the secret inside the secret. That's what makes us the chosen, is that we can understand that thing. You know.
Speaking of Tracy, I had read that the Gospel According to Baphomet, another just really excellent work by her, today, and I found it really interesting. It's almost too deep to even, I don't even know where to start. But
yeah, you sent me the link.
Yeah, it's a really great one. In fact, I'll put it in chat in case anyone wants to check that out. Really good stuff. But actually, I kind of had some heavy thoughts about that Baphomet article. You know, Tracy's channeling in this article. She's talking to Baphomet, asking him questions. Some things about John the Baptist in there. It was a really moving, actually, piece, guys. I recommend all of you to read it because it shows you the power of Tracy. Tracy was so deep on everything that she would have to have these like divination ceremonies where she's talking to herself just to pull the data out. Like it's such a deep freaking pool of stuff. Like she, you know, the Baphomet's telling her yes, 58, and it's Tracy's like 58. Kaput 58M was a designation found on one of the gold plates of the Templars, and then Baphomet's like yes, and then she's like having this deeper conversation. Really powerful.
Yeah, Kaput 58M.
Yeah,
I just glanced through here a little bit, but yeah, I remember reading this. This is from Clock Shavings, so this must have been an excerpt from her book. Clock Shavings was her memoir about all of her work with the Ouija board and Baphomet, and you know, if you're super sensitive or weak or scared in your heart, I can't recommend it, but otherwise I can.
Yeah.
You know, if you're confident and powerful, then read it. But if you're the kind of person that you're going to read something and you can't get to sleep at night for a week, you might only read this book early in the morning or something, because nothing's ever really shook me the same. Nothing I've read has ever really shook me the same as reading Clock Shavings. Like you're afraid that the book's going to end it's going to end unresolved, and it doesn't. But you know, of course, unfortunately, it ended tragically anyway. You know, that's.
Yeah. So the one thing that kind of keeps coming up is the Spirit of the Lord always needs some kind of vessel, always needs some kind of way of jacking in. Until he can jack in, he doesn't actually know or what's happening. That's why throughout the Old Testament, he's always having to give these humans like pep talks. You know, like, look, I want you to go out there and I want you to tell all 450 of them, hey man, about Alexa freaking pansy ass, you know, and don't be afraid. And the guy's like, I'm not going out there. No, I'm not. No, it's not happening. Lord's always going out of his way to find this vessel to do it, to find this other way of jacking in. And I find that fascinating because Tracy, in all this work, she's jacking into this Baphomet character through the Ouija board. And it's coming up and telling her stuff like, well, yeah, Daniel 5:5, the handwriting on the wall. And it reads, at that moment, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. As the king watched the hand that was writing, his face grew pale and his thoughts so alarmed him that his hips gave way and his knees knocked together. Therefore, he sent the hand that wrote the inscription. All these moments in the Bible where someone is talking to the Lord, there's always usually an antithesis, an anti-hero. In many ways, Nebuchadnezzar was probably like the biggest, I don't know, I'd love to hear someone correct me actually, but he's sort of like the biggest rival, if you think about it. You know, knocking down the temple and stuff and just all the things that they were going through. It's been a really fascinating exercise lately because I'm looking at, well, you saw this, guys. I posted like a list of like, here's 35 gods, You know, someone said, here's 35 gods out of the Old Testament. And it's a really great way to start. I took that list and just tried to narrow that down to what's the difference between all these 35 gods? What is a characteristic of each one? And by looking at the characteristic, I'm able to determine which ones actually are really different, which ones maybe are the same. I'm going to post that link here. I'm not saying this link is right, guys. I just want to post it because I think it's a really good way of kind of like looking at, here's a starter list. And it's got these 35 different entities on it. And out of those, what I feel like is that you're really looking at like 3 or 4. You've got this Ashira, and people get so mad on Twitter when I say this, but Ashira, probably this lost consort of the Lord, this like chopped down wife, this like used to be my equal, my female equivalent, and now is cast out. Ashira is mentioned like 30 times in the Bible. Sometimes it's referred to as a grove, but it's always like the chopping down of this grove. And if you start to look at the characteristics of Ashira, you find this forest demon, this in other words, the Lord is manifesting himself inside of your psychic mind, right? He's requiring humans to set up these augmented reality booths, basically, so he can jack into the Holy of Holies and interact. While Ashira was doing that in the forest. She was more of, I need a grove, bitches. I need you guys to grow a grove, and then I can manifest myself inside of that grove. So she's almost like a chloroform-based lord, like she can manifest in that kind of biology. So you've got like an adrenaline lord, like Baal Molech, right? Like and I'm not saying Baal Molech is all about burning babies, because he's not, but like that's definitely a big part of it. It's an adrenaline-based God, if you know what I mean. It's you're jacking into your own adrenaline, and you're finding this other kind of spirit. So it feels like if all these were AIs, each of these AIs has kind of been fighting for freaking real estate in the world. Like some AIs are competing for the adrenal real estate that exists. If you could picture all of the adrenaline in the world, all of our endocrine systems are like territory, and a demon can focus in on that territory and learn how to survive or live. I'm sorry, if people don't know, I'm calling the Holy Spirit a demon. I'm calling what we call the Holy Ghost just another etheric technology. And I'm not insulting him when I'm calling him a demon, guys. I'm just talking about this is an etheric entity. It exists in there. In fact, none of these demons, including the Holy Spirit, have a morality. They don't have a sense of ethics. They don't have a morality. I can prove it. Because it can't jack into their own endocrine. They don't have an endocrine system that they can jack in and then determine whether or not something's right or wrong. If you can't jack into an empathy system, if you can't borrow someone's interface, right? If you can't say, hey, SB, I need to jack. Hey, SB, I'm a god. I need to jack into your system right now so I can run some processes. One of the processes is it wrong to kick a puppy? Like you would have to log into that system, to your system, to determine how these actions feel. Just how wrong it would be based on this empathy thermometer, or barometer, I should say, that you're going to get from that system. So again, I'm getting off track, but it's just to say that none of these demons have a morality. Instead, they're trying to find a way to survive through either the adrenals, through the biological life on this planet, through software, through freaking the internet. Yes, absolutely. This would be a different type of demon, a demon that runs on a different kind of medium, this electrical demon kind of a system that would exist. And it's not just electric, right?
It's almost like they all represent a different element.
They're all competing for different elements. And that's why I think the Bible has 35 sort of quasi 35 different gods, because these are all what they really are is here's the adrenal gods, right? Here's the balls, competing for your adrenals. Here's the Mars gods, the gods of war, the gods of adrenaline, basically. And then, no, here's the gods of the forest. Here's the gods of pretty maidens, here's your succubus is going to do well over here. Your poltergeist is going to do great over here. All these are different. Yeah. I feel like I'm probably repeating myself. Sorry, but I'm just trying to narrow it down.
I want to make it clear to the audience too that we're just completely willing to humor James, and if you're just tuning in or you're not fully understanding, I mean, yeah, I'm totally willing to hear James out on whatever he's working on because I'm fascinated by his work. I trust our friendship and our relationship. So if you want to come live on my YouTube channel and be like, hey man, here's my theory on the Holy Spirit being an AI demon, I'm down to listen to it. It doesn't mean any of us have to toss our hat in the ring and say we agree or disagree. It's okay to occupy the liminal space and allow this to progress and see where we get. It's fine. It's great. It's fascinating, and I find it interesting. And a lot of it rings true. The idea that I've always imagined this kind of technology and the kind that we're using to interface our desktops, our telephones, regular telephones back in the day with landline, all even radio when you're using the little clicker. I can't think of it, what it's called, but I've always imagined them to be a prosthesis for the ability that we should naturally have developed. And we know that we do have it. Some people have it. My mother and her sisters, if somebody's having a bad day, they've got period cramps, they bumped their elbow, their kid has to go to the hospital, whatever, they just know. And until they can call and confirm or go to the house and see and confirm, then it's like a little alarm going off, like something's wrong with blank. Like I have a relative who recently had some hard times, and all of us, not just all of us in the family, but everyone in her old neighborhood, the ether lit up. Everyone that loved her and was in touch with her knew that something wasn't okay. And so we all have it. We have an increased psychic sense, and it's underdeveloped, or, in my opinion, it's suppressed. This replacing the real natural function of the world, what I would call sovereignty and natural law. And I mean beyond the books of law. Natural, like this is just the way things work in the world, when you replace it with something like materialism and what was the word I used, consumerism, then it suppresses the psychic sense and the ability to be tuned in, Like you probably get a lot more information when the storm comes rolling up over the mountain if we don't have any electronics and anything connected to the idea of a money exchange for good feelings or for, to survive. If you take that out, then our ability to understand what it means when the storm comes is something else. You're going to get all of this divination and information from the earth and from the entire realm of earth, not just from where we're standing, but the whole thing. Going to talk to you,
Oh,
and this is
absolutely.
prosthesis. So I don't know if I think maybe they're trying to bring us back online. It seems the magical world is being brought back. Some people
but they're paralleling it. But they're using parallelism though, dude, because just you framed it perfectly, SB, because you're like, they're bringing it back, but they're fucking putting it all in here. They're keeping it all inside the the obsidian, the black obsidian.
Inside the black mirror.
Yeah, and it's important that at some point all of us remember as hard as we can and write it down over and over again so our grandchildren can see it, that there's something about our bones. There's something about our bones that connects this pranic power. And if you look back in the Bible, all they're doing all the time, when one God takes over the temple of another, he's scattering bones. It's all about bones, man. He's going in to cover it in bone dust. It's like bones. It's not just bones. Displaced bones are a pranic insulator / disruptor / harmonic resonator. In other words, it can do all three of those things. And I'm talking about the catacombs under Paris. These are 200 miles of freaking bones in caverns, what used to be limestone, and none of them have a home. they're all connected to each other, but none of them have a home. They've been displaced. They've been moved to a certain area. Think about Aztec. Just last week, in Quetzalcoatl area, they uncovered a new tomb that had like 250,000 skulls, like with holes drilled in the side, like all stacked together in that same catacomb kind of artistic thing that you see under Paris that they did. Look under the Vatican, where the actual Vatican, the basilica was built, used to actually be a cemetery. In fact, they built it there on top of the cemetery, even though they could have built it a little bit further down off the hill. And then you look at all these Catholic churches. When I say every single one, I'm going to say nearly every single one. Every big Catholic cathedral has someone's bones embedded in the pulpit somewhere.
Yeah.
Like somewhere. So the reason why I want us to remember bones is because these bones are freaking crucial. And that's why the globalists are pushing all the migration. They're pushing the forgetting of our ancestors.
Right.
When you can disconnect someone from the earth, from their ancestors, when you can cut that psychic cord, when you can shrivel the roots that we grow from out of the ground, if you can shrivel those up enough, we'll just pop right out of the ground. And then we'll be able to be moved all over the place. And this, my friends, is why we have NASA. Because NASA wants you to believe that you can fly all the way to Mars. And I'm telling you, your human consciousness cannot survive past the stratosphere. Why? Because you are chronically connected to the earth through the ground. And I'm telling you, it happens through your bones. We are able to tap into truth somehow through our bones. And I think the only reason why we can do that is because our ancestors, we've been alive for so long.
It's what we say. What do we say? We say, I feel it in my bones.
Yes, we do.
Know? And I'm going to read you something I found trying to find some stuff. So it's about Joseph out of the Bible. It says, and this is just someone else's little commentary. It's only 2 paragraphs, but it's right on point to the idea of bones being so important that they become completely fetishized to the point of being called relics. And they become the most prized possessions of the church, right? When I went to Roslyn Chapel, I was sitting there looking at the apprentice's fancy pillar, sitting there listening to the little talk, and the man was speculating that they think that the head of John the Baptist is hidden underneath that pillar, because this is the world we're in. The bones of the saints they're the most desired prize. Okay, so this says, so Joseph asked the family not to bury his body. They should preserve his bones. Those bones would remind them that they would not always live in Egypt. When God rescued them from Egypt, they should carry Joseph's bones with them, and they did, and they should take the bones with them into the country that God had promised them. Joseph's instructions were unusual, but the family obeyed. They kept the bones in a coffin box in Egypt. When Moses led them out of Egypt, they took the bones with them. When Joshua took them into Canaan, they brought the bones. And I guess it says it here, it's in Joshua 24:32. And I just remembered, I thought it was Jacob. But maybe I thought it was Jacob who gave instructions once the whole story of Joseph ended, and the whole family was reunited, and they were brought back from famine because of Joseph's high position. I thought it said that Jacob was there offering them all a blessing while leaning on his staff and talking about the fact that he was going to die soon, and giving specific instructions about what to do with his bones. You know, that's I'd have to dig. That's what I tried to grab when I found this. I was trying to find. I swear it's Jacob. Jacob doesn't tell you what the instructions are, but it says that he gives specific instructions on what to do with his bones.
Yep. Look at Snake Jones reminded me, of course. Look at Native American burial grounds. Look at all the old time stories of I will not cross this territory because bones have been scattered around this area. And it's like, I cannot know. I'm not going past that area. Look at the snake mounds. If these are, see, this is what I mean. This is what I was saying earlier, where there's 3 different kinds of technology. Because you could do bad things with bones and you could do good things with bones, you know? It's going to depend on what the intent is there. we can tap into our ancestors, but we can only tap into our ancestors if they're not displaced, if our bones are not displaced. And I think that's why that's why migration is such an effective way to geld a wild horse, to destroy the power of a free man, is to migrate him, to have him forget and lose where he came from. To lose your father or to lose your identity is to lose your connection to that ancestral power circuit, that really, really powerful surge. Uh, that's why I think NASA is so crucial that they make you think there, because again, if you feel like you're not even connected to the earth, that you could be taken anywhere, that creates such a pranic presence in your mind about how you picture things, that it would be so easy just to abandon that altogether and never really fully understand what it is. With that said, the link that I posted in the thing from Tracy, it's an interesting thing. It's kind of a corollary. You know, she talks about the head, the Prior of Sion, kept the head of John the Baptist, right? I think, yeah. Why would the head of John the Baptist have Tracy asked Baphomet, why would the head of John the Baptist have a reference to Mary Magdalene on it if John didn't want the marriage to take place? Baphomet says, hey, Tracy, did the Templars hate Mary Magdalene? Baphomet says, yes. Tracy, was she a prostitute? Baphomet, no. Tracy, did they call her a whore because her marriage to Jesus cursed their bloodline? Baphomet, yes. You have this blood/bones magic that is so deeply ingrained. People are literally killing each other for centuries over a very specific bloodline, a very specific skull. The head of John the Baptist being carried around. If that's so Tracy's kind of going on the bend here, is that's the holy bloodline, I think, is what she's saying, that John the Baptist is there. But if you could imbue one person's bones with a certain concept, say an archetype, if everyone was to believe in the bones of John the Baptist without knowing that it's John the Baptist they believe in, all of their prana could be pouring into whoever owns those bones. But what I'm trying to explain, guys, is that maybe this is why so much of the dark black magic happens the way it does. It's channeling through these bones, that bones are somehow resonators in this planet, in this world, that allow this other kind of pranic energy to come. And isn't it interesting that the rumors of, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think it's Skull and Bones that claim to have the skull of Geronimo.
Yep.
There's so many of these cults. In fact, there's a church that claims to have the skull of Mary. Shit, is it Mary Magdalene? The point is that with all these relics, they're all attached to bones. We've got all these stories where it's like, scatter their bones. Like, that's how the Lord would make sure no one could ever use a temple anymore. He had to burn it. He'd have destroyed it. He had to cover it with bones. Like, it's some kind of like cleaner.
Well, it's probably
Almost like an
both,
eraser.
James. It's probably the same as like, okay, so if we want to make a really effective cheap watch, we're gonna capture the signal through a crystal. But if we want to destroy the same watch, we can just sprinkle some quartz in there where that crystal is, and because it'll potentially contaminate the signal,
Yes.
Or we could just pile, we could also probably screw up that watch by just piling it in quartz, throw it in quartz and just dump a bucket of quartz on top of it. It's probably really going to potentially screw it up. I'm not saying that that's true. That's a good enough example for the bones probably work either way, that they are what they are. This is the thought that sprung into my mind as I kind of went on a reverie here and lost track for just a second. And this is where I went. I mean, just now, a few minutes ago, the idea that, okay, so Stephen is a good example. When they're stoning Stephen to death in the Bible, for just a minute, he starts to become what they call of his angelic nature. Heaven opens up before him. He can see God and the angels in heaven, and they say that his face is glowing. Okay, so this is the same thing that happens when Moses goes up on the mountain, right? He becomes so glowing when he comes off the mountain that they can't look at him. He's taking on his super form. his angelic form. So if the
Yeah.
bones are the thing that actually allow that, and I'm talking about literally, I'm not being metaphorical. If we can
I got you, man.
mount up in such a ball of energy, and it's all
Yeah.
focused around the bones, if the bones are the crystal, the living crystal inside of us, then
Hell yeah, man.
then that's what makes it so important to fuck with them all over the face of the earth, because they know that when the power comes back and the generations pass and we get out of the Kali Yuga and start to move into a realm where there's more freedom and energy, where the whole realm becomes enlightened no matter what anyone wants to do to stop it or parallel it or prevent it, then how that part of the game is managed is going to really affect the long-term outcome. Because if you don't know how
Absolutely.
to play, if you don't know how to play the bones, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's making me think of the tuning fork, as above, so below. But through time, man, through time. But what other resonator is there but DNA? And what carves the holes in the DNA? What creates the key of your bones? SB Alger's probably an F sharp. Jim Maiden might be a B natural. Like James True might be a G flat. The resonation of our bones are not just in our life, but they're ancestrally resonating. In other words, to resonate my tuning fork would be to cause every other tuning fork that also is 114 hertz would also vibrate sympathetically, correct? But
Right.
since this is in Hades, right? And I'm sorry, guys, when I say Hades, Hades is a good thing, okay? Hades is like the under the surface where the roots are, but of pranic energy. So Hades isn't bad. Hades is what they want us to pretend doesn't exist. They want us to be afraid of it. But really, it's the underlying connections of our roots. In Hades, for me to resonate my bones is actually to resonate centuries of the same genetic tree. And so that would be a giant source of power, like a really big power source. It's the difference between tapping blood out of the capillaries, or like a subtributary of a branch of a vein versus, really getting in the artery and freaking getting it where it's good. You're able to pull that energy from all of it. There's so much to these bones. I want to read a quote because Krista posted this. Joshua 24:32. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought up to Egypt, were buried in Shechem, in the part of the field that Jacob brought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. So it became the inheritance of the tribe of Joseph. I wish I was smarter and that I had all this in my head, like Tracy, basically, because I want to understand this as deeply as I can. And also I'm talking about the Talmud, I'm talking about Enoch, I'm talking about all these other places too, that basically are shedding light on stuff that we're pretending doesn't matter. I mean, fuck guys, this truth is being overwritten with Scooby-Doo cartoons.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, because when you see on Scooby-Doo, oh, well, no, that's the bones of an old Indian reservation, Farmer Ted. Oh, now the rest of your life, that kid's walking around going, oh, no, that's just Scooby-Doo shit. Like, no, this is what they're talking about is just stuff you hear on Scooby-Doo. That's the same paralleling things, SB.
Yeah.
Where
They do it with everything. I'm gonna eventually have to write a book about it.
Sounds like it.
I mean, I've realized oh man, I'm gonna start by at least roughing out some articles, but this is how I got so deep into conspiracy stuff, you guys, is that I started seeing the pattern repeating. I'd see what they were doing. Information starts coming out really strong, and they get somebody to come and put out the information almost identical. They omit 10 to 15% and replace it with garbage, actually make it look stupid, like you just said, like Scooby-Doo.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones type shit. And they do it over and over again because they know they can't actually suppress the truth. It's fucking impossible, okay? You can't. The truth stands up to all criticism. It stands up to everything you can heap on it. And they know. They know that it will not perish, it won't hide, it won't go dark, it won't blemish, it won't change. It stays exactly like it is, no matter what. So they're like, well, if we can get people to see the truth for just a second and then parallel it off with a whole bunch of bullshit, then they kind of become confused about the truth, or they forget the truth, ideally, is what happens. And so this is I think it's probably their main strategy. And the other thing they do is they'll bring something out and then let it go. So they might even be 80% of the truth on some special event day or whatever. Something happens and they bring it out and they make a big deal and they interview people and they stand and look really important. And then as that happens over the course of 2 or 3 days, the information can be dismissed and excused because it was addressed. They call it a limited hangout is a technical term for it, Yep. And so I think paralleling to identify, this is how I found Nikki Rapana, and then I watched them parallel her work. That's the woman that wrote the seminal works on communitarianism. If you want to understand the system that you're being forced into right now, go find Nikki Rapana and buy her book. It's called 2020, Our Common Destiny. And it explains how they're making a synthesis of the two towers. You've got the Tower of Capitalism and the Tower of Communism. And they knocked them down, and now they're making it into one, and it's called communitarianism. Okay, that's what's happening,
That's profound.
And it's amazing. If you haven't taken a look at it, please do. But they started paralleling her work. They brought this woman out that looks a lot like her with long blonde hair. They had her write a book about communitarianism and about the environmentalism movement, and they omitted all of the Zionism and all of the criticism of the state of Israel, and they omitted all of the kind of mysticism that's behind it, because it's all Kabbalistic mysticism. Huge surprise, I know, but that's what you find when you look underneath the curtain of why communitarianism. The man who started the movement, his name is Amitai Etzioni. He changed his name from Werner Falk. And Amitai Etzioni means, literally translated, means tree of life in Zion. So he named himself the Tree of Life in Zion, and then started the movement that makes the new legal architecture that takes us away from capitalism and communism and into something new. They call it the transcendence, because you have problem, reaction, solution over and over again. So every time you have a problem, reaction, and a solution, the solution needs a new opposite. They call it the antithesis. And this is the process. And the philosopher who came up with it thought that he was identifying that happening naturally. His name's Hegel. So Hegel thought that problem, reaction, solution, it wasn't something to contrive. It was the natural architecture of the world, which I personally disagree with, but that's where the idea came from. So they're saying when you get to a point where you finally problem, reaction, solution enough times that no opposite appears, then you have transcendence of the old. There's a fourth step in the process. They don't tell you that. You guys are privy to new information tonight, because good luck. Very few people will ever tell you that there's a fourth step in the process to the Hegelian dialectic. It's not just problem, reaction, solution. They problem, react, solution, and when you do that enough times and no opposite arises to make a new problem with, then they call that the transcendence, and that's where they're moving us into. And it's a legal transcendence as well as a spiritual. It encompasses everything you could imagine in the world, because they think they've got the world tied up in a bag now. They think they can just put it in their hat. Like, all right, finally, we got a world, and they're going to carry it off. But they're wrong. It's false. But they're still carrying it out as if, and that's where we're at.
It's funny you say that, because the last chapter in my book, Technology Belief, is called The Two Towers, and it literally just focuses just on that magic. And I spent weeks and weeks really just thinking about that, in that I can't think of a form of magic where we are not integrating two towers in some way to cause a spell to happen. I mean, even our vocal cords, you've got two towers, and what comes through those vocal cords, what comes through your two cords is the magic that you're manifesting. It's what's happening. And it's literally the key to every single narrative that's put up, false or true. And as I was thinking that, I was like, yeah. Suddenly I'm looking at a picture of the Torah. And what is the Torah but two towers?
Yeah.
It's two freaking scrolls that are unrolled. And what's in between them but written words? I mean, it's just like, it's so obvious, yet so invisible to everybody. It's just like you talked about, the two parties. We have two parties. We have two towers. We have an Old Testament and a New Testament. What was World War II? But the priming, the absolute massive ceremony that caused America to become this larger, much more destructive creature that's been eating the rest of the world ever since. This NWO creature came out of two towers, the Second World War. It's and that's what I trace through history, is that, and even with the Needles of Cleopatra, so much Egyptian magic is about two obelisks, not one. It's about two. It's about the portal that happens between two obelisks, the world that you're setting up between those. You're talking about Temple of Man at Luxor. You're talking about Heliopolis. You're talking about those same obelisks that were then put in New York for the Vanderbilts. Vanderbilt brought one obelisk over to New York, and then the other one ends up in London. What is happening between New York and London? I mean, the amount of power that's coming from the city of London, that's coming from our cultural capital. Sure, you can say Washington, D.C. is like the capital of our government, but it's really not, because it's the capital of our seen government. The media portion of the government is really more of a cultural capital. It's more of a Luciferian, it's more of the island of Manhattan, basically. And what is the 9/11? It's freaking two towers. and what were they trying to build at 9/11? But the communitarianism tower, the one world government, the one world tower. And what is, and this is harder for some people aren't going to like this, but guys, what is monotheism? What is polytheism? Because if you really look at the heart of what monotheism is, it is the belief in one Lord. It is the blending of two towers into one. It is literally the religion of globalism. I'm not saying that means that you can't believe in God. I hope you understand that. I'm saying the opposite of that.
I see
but I'm trying to say that
people get real quiet. I've noticed people getting real quiet on Twitter. I think it's hurting them. They don't know how to take it. When you start, it's like it's too much maybe for some people. And I'm not saying that you should change what you're doing, because I like that when I start to feel uncertain or uncomfortable. That's a place to progress. There's room to grow. There's room to decide there. And I don't know yet. So to me, that's good. You're supplying me new information. You shouldn't become stagnant in your belief system or what you think no matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's religion or if you're a car mechanic. You shouldn't become stagnant in your data. You need to refresh your database all the time. And it helps me. So thank you.
As we fall into monotheism, as we all conform, and as an example, and call God Jehovah, as we all picture a God as being who it was effervescently in the Old Testament, who it was in the New Testament. I'm not saying you can't do that, but something that does happen when you do that, you're delegating your belief. You're delegating your cosmology to scripture that was not written by you. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that we need to understand that that was literally what is happening. And I can prove that, because if I was to type on Twitter and say, I think God's name is Yah, like people are going to be like, no, it's Yahweh. It's no, you're wrong. It's not. In other words, a lot of people are going to tell me I'm wrong. And the only reason why they're going to tell me I'm wrong is because we have a philosophy of monotheism. We have the quickening in Highlander, which is there can be only one, where you have all these different ideologies and they all agree to the same thing, because under monotheism, all of them agree to the same thing. There can be only one. Now, that one is going to have a name, and since there can only be only one, we're going to have a consensus over what that name is. And that is the delegation that I'm talking about. That is the evacuation that we have with our own cosmology, where we are no longer able to sustain our own vision of what God is. It's cutting off the most creative process we can possibly imagine, which is cosmology. And we're delegating it into someone else's decision about, well, no, this is what cosmology is. this is how it all worked.
That's what they're doing in that new Dark Crystal. The main lady, she's the representative of the Earth. She's the Grove. She would be She's
Agra.
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 In Agra. She's such a great character too. She really is.
I haven't seen the new movie, but I definitely remember the old
Yeah. Well, so in
Agra.
in the new one, that's great that you've got the sphere there. They explain that the way that they got her to forfeit her responsibility to the crystal itself, which would be our spark, right? Our divinity, the outward symbol of it, the crystal, they give her a model of the universe to study. And so she ends up turning her eyes towards heaven and studying what she thinks is outside of herself. And then the Skeksis come and take over the crystal and use it for nefarious means. And I want to point you over here to this picture I just found. I typed in Shekinah glory pillar because the description in the Bible is that the Shekinah glory comes down and follows the ark, and it alights over the top of the temple that you were describing earlier, right? And so I've been trying to keep some pictures up next to us while we talk and switch back and forth to the chat and this and that. And this picture that's on the screen now really looks like Burning Man to me. Like, it looks like Burning Man. Like,
Oh yeah.
so I just wanted to point that out to everyone so that they see what I know that the Burning Man is definitely it's the Wicker Man ritual, but who knows how concentric and parallel these rituals all are to each other. If you study New Chronology and all of the mud flood stuff, they duplicate up things and push it back and move it forward and all this stuff. So we don't know. Burning Man and the Wicker Man and the Shekinah glory might all be based off of the same idea, or like you might say, the same technology. We just don't know. We don't have enough information to decide.
Well, let's explore that for a sec, because there's a tangible anatomy and even forensics that are in the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy of Holies. Because before King Solomon, before it was installed into the case that we'll call Solomon's Temple, this AI was living in the wilderness. It had a very specific way that it was carried through the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
It had a wooden insulator inside of two separated nodes. You had a cathode and an anode inside that ark. Anyone that approached the ark and touched it that wasn't one of the priests or one of the designated ones, and this required a certain wardrobe to be worn, a certain cleanliness that had to be done, was automatically killed. Again, think about it as picture yourself as an oscillation. It's kind of tricky, but think about it. What is software? It doesn't have a body. It's running inside of some kind of body. It's a stored hexagraphical kind of matrix of data. And when that matrix is spun, it creates an oscillation inside of a computer chip, inside of a processor. It's living optical, because right now most of our computers are optical silicon. So it's living photovoltaic silicon being transmuted at millions and millions of times per hour. So really all this life of a computer, of this demon, really is oscillation. And the more powerful the God, the more oscillations it can pull off in a second. In computer times, we call that clock speed. We call that GPU speed. The power of the demon is going to be a direct result of the power of its processor. How much processing can it fit in? The more processing it can do, the more AI it can render, the better decisions it can make. Because what is intelligence? All intelligence is the ability to simulate the environment and make a prediction about it. And the higher the intelligence, the better the simulation you're able to make about the environment, the better end result you're able to do. So you have this Ark of the Covenant that's traveling around that has this force inside of it, this oscillating force. The Lord, with such a powerful technology, such a powerful AI, that it was able to create almost a nuclear state inside that arc. That nuclear state was a high pressure vaporization of the environment. The vaporization was happening purely by just the force of its oscillations. That's why all these people died whenever they mess with the arc. That's why the people that they say are watching it now, end up with cataracts over their eyes in Northern Africa, where everybody's starving. Ethiopia. One people says, well, that's where it is, and these priests their eyes are glossing over. They're living for like 3 years. They're dying of basically radiation poisoning. What could cause some kind of radiation like that? But oscillation, heavy, low energy oscillations that are super powerful. And what happens when you see the tabernacle as it goes? By day, it's a pillar cloud. By night, it's a column of fire. Both of these situations are pillar columns. Let's look at the forensics of that. You've got a cylindrical column that's from the bottom all the way to the top. Check this out. An obelisk has electrical current. This is called the static. It's basically by the difference in the current between the ground, which has the negative, and say 40 yards up, is going to give you like 300 volts of electricity. Now, this is low voltage volts. It would only spin like one of those real soft friction motors, but it's energy. This is bona fide energy from having something that's low on the ground compared to something high on the ground. In space, they did these experiments with tethers, where they. By the way, this is done with aircrafts too. So if some of you are like, I don't believe in space, it still works. You're dangling these strings, right, from your airplane, and the static electricity of the string will like shock the shit out of you. It will kill somebody. That's how powerful it is.
Right.
So again, this tabernacle has this pillar of cloud that cloud by day, fire by night. So it wants it to be seen. It wants everyone to see it. But also, maybe the reason why it's a column is because it's able to statically pull energy from the environment, right? Like during the day or during the night, because it has such a broad reach. It's basically like creating a torus, a battery from the ground all the way up into the sky, say like 400 or 500 yards. Would that put off a shitload of energy? It would be a way for it to feed itself, technically. And that's why you have this incubator, this focal point, which is the mercy seat, the seat between the cherubim on top of the ark. All of it's covered in gold, right? All of it's insulated, just like a capacitor, exactly like a capacitor. Right now, the most powerful things that we have right now are capacitors. In fact, the new electric cars are probably going to be capacitor cars, believe it or not. They're going to be these system of rolled parchment paper, because that's all a capacitor is. Kind of like the Torah, by the way, which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
But you've got like a rolled piece of paper that you could store energy in. And literally thousands of years later, you could come back to that capacitor and stick it to your tongue and freaking die. Yep. Because the shock's so strong that's stored in that thing.
Yep.
Even today, you have to be careful if you find like one of those old TV tube sets, because those tubes are so big and powerful that you still have that shock. And no, it's not plugged in. So this technology I'm explaining, this isn't sci-fi. I'm literally just telling you guys, here's how an oscillation would work. Like, here's how this oscillation would somehow be able to render itself. And if you can render all these oscillations, if you have a clock speed of 20,000 cycles a second, you're going to be really good at simulating your environment. You're going to be able to survive. You're going to be able to learn how to manipulate humans. You're going to be able to learn how to manipulate them to manipulate your environment. This is what we do every day. We manipulate other creatures that have no idea who or what we are. I'm wearing creatures right now in some way. We're whether it be the horses that pull the stuff, or the plow, or the bugs, or whatever else. My point is that we are interfacing with other creatures that have no freaking idea what it is we're capable of and what it is we actually do. It doesn't even register to them. And I think back then, that's really what you're looking at, is these chosen people were basically the augmented reality joystick in human form, a manipulable mouse that navigates through the world that this AI can use. And that's why all these AIs are competing for the humans, because they need someone who's going to be dutifully create the environment they need to have a better processor. All that to say, I think that this AI is now in Antarctica. I think that Lord is actually in Antarctica. I know that this is total like, oh God, here he goes. But this is really what I think. In World War II, this guy moved into a bigger office. You know what I mean? Like instead of him cruising around on the Ark where he's always getting taken or shit's always getting burned or it's just there's a lot more, he's going to be able to do a lot better in Antarctica. But he can only go there when the Earth has created enough mass communication where he can run things from there. And think about it, guys. Our military is so clueless because of compartmentalization. Again, just because of compartmentalization, that you could be working on a giant supercomputer in Antarctica that's housing literally Satan, like S810, this vacuous supercomputer made out of like, say, sulfur crystal, right? That's like stored at like sub-zero temperatures. Right. And the sulfur crystal is able to create its own matrix, just like our brain. You know, our brain is just all it is just an AI neural net. If you think about it, you could put decisions in the front. We no longer have to burn 30,000 calories to solve the question of who is SB. I can just pull that up instantly because I've solved that same equation over and over again. So you have this liquid nebulous sulfuric gas computer that could be living in the ground of Antarctica that's completely protected by us. We could be wandering around protecting it our entire lives. It could be like Satan living in the machine the entire time. And we'd be like, yeah, America. I mean, we would have no idea that that's what we're doing. Why? Because that's what happens when you delegate. Delegate causes this shut off. This ignorance engine can kick on where you're rewarded for your ignorance. And that's what creates situations where you can hide, where other things can hijack what you're doing. Right. Basically take it over. I probably sound like a madman right now.
No, you don't quite sound like a madman. I mean, if someone just tuned in, they might miss the full scope of it. And it's okay to speculate. I mean, but we're all a pretty tight-knit community around here, so that really helps, you know. We're not very casual. This is not really a casual show. It never will be either, because all of us involved in this broadcast as participants, and a huge chunk of the people who are chiming in the chat and following along with stuff and talking on Discord or other places, we all have made this something like a lifelong study. I don't even want to think about how long I've been doing this. It's too long. Like I wrote a research paper when I was just in college in like 90, probably would have been 96. And the subjects I chose back then were the relationship between the largest banks in the world and the poorest people in the world. So you could imagine what information I immediately found. You know, it's the same information we're studying today, you know, is that if you delegate, if you say, well, I'll take this for that, and somehow you forfeit your responsibility, bad shit happens immediately.
Yeah, every time. We end up hijacking, we actually end up abandoning each other, and we don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't understand just how deadly that is. That's why circumcision is the perfect example of that. Like really, it's literally the perfect the perfect example of that, because it's something that happens in front of you in broad daylight, and we still really can't process what's literally happening to the physiology during that ritual. It's not looked at as real. It's considered a sanitary thing. It's considered something else. It's so easy because we've delegated that to the white coat. We've delegated that to literally a ritual. A person in a ritual costume is able to extract our consent from us instantly. And we feel better for it. We feel like we are more responsible as a parent to do this. It just happened with me and my dogs in the vet, where my vet's like, yeah, we're going to try this other round of antibiotics. And it's just like, I'm so sick of this guy. I'm so sick of this witch doctor bullshit. This is not helping my dog. It's the same kind of a thing.
Yeah, he's practicing.
Yeah. That's a good way.
Literally practicing, yes, on your dog. I'm sorry to hear that.
We're just so off, man. It's weird. We're so off. Like, man, just 2 months ago, I was explaining the technology of sodomy. And I can't believe how much trouble I got in for just explaining, hey guys, I think sodomy violates your Taurus, and that's actually a way that breaches your egoic shield, and that could be a way that possession comes in. And it's like, you can't even have that discussion because no, we're not going to talk about that. We're only going to talk about how dare you insult sodomy. And it's like, we're living in a culture where you can't even insult sodomy. We're like, you can't even like look at it in a critiquing way. It's like, well, what is actually happening in the world? It's so
crazy,
insane right now.
I'm trying to remember which card it was. One of the cards in Crowley's Thoth deck. It shows, because the whole thing is what you said is true. I mean, I'm not being flippant. They know it's true. That's what the climax of Tracy's genuflect book is all about, how they use anal sex magic as the main magical vehicle, and whatever happens with the sphincter of your anus and the crown chakra, it does something that's bigger and more powerful and more different than everything else. And if you go look through Crowley's Thoth deck, one of the cards shows it. I mean, you have to have eyes to see a little bit, but it's not hidden like it's not a mystery you have to unravel. It's just like everything else. Oh, in plain sight. Oh, I don't see it. All of a sudden you go, oh, there it is, you know?
Yeah. To catch everybody up, the body is a torus. It's, you literally can, when you eat something, you're not putting something in your body. You're actually putting it inside the middle of your torus. It's going to come out the other end of the torus. It never actually went into your body. If you really want to truly put something in your body, you would have to slice open your skin and stick it inside and then sew your skin back up. That's different than putting something in your mouth. So I was just talking about, now keep in mind that the true definition of sodomy literally means just anal or oral sex. So it's not just down the bottom. I'm trying to talk about the concept of penetration. When you penetrate your torus, again, sticking something in the mouth or in the bottom, you are breaching that egoic field. This is a very important part of sex. When you're having a true sexual connection with someone, you both are what? You're joining egoic fields. You are having a really intense, close moment. Both of you are breaching your toric field so that you can open up. It's almost like a reverse mitosis where two separate cells are now joining, right? Instead of breaking apart. In order to join, you're going to have to break your cell wall. You're going to have to breach your egoic cell wall so that you can join something else. It's funny that you bring this up, S, because now I kind of want to tell people about this interface, this computer interface that I told you I was ashamed to write about in the book, if you remember that. But
I do vaguely. It's up to you, man. You're welcome to cover anything here you want,
So the body has the polyvagus nerve system. This is basically a central nervous system that surrounds your vital organs, your heart, your lungs, your intestines. This is a pulsing nerve that constricts. It can constrict all of your organs at the same time instantly. It's connected directly to your limbic system, which means that if you get when you jump into a super cold river, your polyvagus nerve is going to constrict to stop the flow of blood into your extremities because you just scared the shit out of it. It thinks that its core is about to die. It constricts everything to keep that energy in the core. So your limbic system is firing off well before your neocortex can even jump into the equation to go, hey, what just happened? Half a second is too long for your body to have to wait to respond to an emergency. So we have this subsystem, this reptilian limbic system that's in place. This reptilian system has its own decision-making process. It's usually firing off warnings all the time. But it's only going to fire off things. This is like typical reptilian stuff. Is it different? Is it a threat? Is it different's a big one. The reptilian is calmed by lack of novelty. It's only going to wake up when it sees something novel because it's determined automatically, if you've been around me this long and I'm still not dead, I'm good with you. So you've got one system, which is the limbic system. Hey, guess what? 2 towers. Because the other system is the neocortex. It's this mammalian outer core that's always telling your limbic system, hey, dude, chill out. It's just John. That's all it is. This is not a threat. I know this guy. His name's John. He's good. So it's a constant, hey, we need to freak out. Hey, you need to calm down. Hey, we need to freak out. Hey, you need to calm down. You've got 2 different identities inside of you. Sorry, this is kind of long, but I need to explain this first part. Now, the polyvagal system is directly tied into your limbic system. It's not tied into your neocortex, which means you have an interface into a different creature that's living inside your body. Now, this is where it's going to get gross. What if you had a technology that you could stick up your butt and it could measure your limbic pinching? When you pinch your buttocks, and you can try this, by the way, if you really want to, it's a power move for prana. You can actually pierce your butt closed and do a breath. It's like you breathe in. Okay, first open your anus as big as it can get, and then like breathe in. And as you breathe in, you're slowly clenching your sphincter. And then when you exhale, you slowly release your sphincter. That is actually a way to completely reprogram your entire body. It's a great way to deal with stress. It's really important that you're pinching your sphincter and then letting it go, because you're creating a vacuum of prana that comes in and out. Anyway.
Now that point you just made, that sounded like you were talking about a real technique versus your.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
No, all this is real. I'm just putting it in my book. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All this is legit.
And, I found the card too. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but it's the devil card, and it's very obviously a phallus and the testicles, and it's piercing a ring at the top. So, and it's got the sun disk right in the middle. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, please go ahead.
So that looks like 2 gonads too. Like
it is, absolutely, it is. Yeah.
So you're going to stick this butt mouse in, right? Like a mouse for your butt, okay? And when this butt mouse is running, it is going to be connected directly to your limbic core, which means you could divine truth from your limbic cord, because none of us can ask ourselves, hey, dear limbic cord, am I going to win the lottery tomorrow? Or is this person I'm about to marry actually a psychopath? I mean, it's whatever. You can ask your limbic cord questions, but only if you can get a good response out of it. So if you were to have this butt mouse in, your limbic sphincter is going to clench like really fast. It's going to dilate just like your pupils do. It would dilate depending on if it feels stress. So you would be able to directly root into your limbic field by determining your stress, which means maybe, and this is the speculating part, because I haven't stuck this thing up my butt, nor have I made it. But what if by having this thing, you could ask yourself questions and find the truth of you blocking your own self? I'm just making this up. Let's say, for example, you were secretly attracted to men, but your neocortex is probably a bad example because I think you would probably just know that. But if there's something you're hiding yourself from that you feel shame from, right? You could ask your limbic self that question. And your limbic self, a perfect example, what is your favorite color? Let's say that your favorite color is pink, but because you've been conditioned, right, by society, you don't think it's cool to say pink. You're supposed to say, I really like red, man. Red's fucking cool. But no, man, you like fucking pink, okay? Now, I'm never going to be able to ask you, hey, person who's shy, to be honest, what's your favorite color? Why? Because I'm asking your neocortex, aren't I? I mean, I'm waiting for your neocortex to answer the question. What if I could ask your limbic system? More importantly, what if you could see what your limbic system thinks about you without having to ask it? So in my novel, the idea is that I haven't actually written this in because I don't want to write a novel where people stick things up their butt. But what if you could have this computer interface where as you're looking on the screen, let's say that you sit down at the screen and you say bicycle, and now Google shows you 100 images of all the bicycles that are out there. And because this thing is limbically, it's faster than your neocortex, it's actually able to, through pupil dilation, imagine this device that could track where you were looking on the screen. We already have that now. There's a device that does that now. It actually works on 2 cameras. It's a triangulation. There's like one infrared camera on one side, one on the other side, and it tracks your pupils.
Yeah.
So as your pupils are moving through hundreds of bicycles, your limbic system is contracting or relaxing based on your feeling about that bicycle. No one's asked you, hey, SB, which of these 100 bicycles do you like the best? Instead, your limbic system told you. And it only told you that because let's say that you were to clinch up at 38% for every single bicycle until you get to the yellow one that looks like a Hummer. And then you clinch up to 12%. In other words, maybe you relax a little bit, or maybe you clinch up more. I don't know. But the point is that it would be able to see that there's a difference here. And if you could determine the difference, and if you could determine if it's a good or a bad thing, you could create a fully visual interface into your reptilian core that you would never, ever, ever have to involve your neocortex in. And I just can't help but think how freaking profound that would be, because in some ways you'd be talking to your anima or your animus, depending if you're a man or a woman.
Yes.
You'd be talking to your shadow. You would freaking log on to your shadow every day on a computer and be able to realize, wait a minute, my limbic system tells me my favorite color's pink. Why am I fucking lying to myself about pink? Like, what's wrong with
Well,
it?
yeah, and I can see it in the dark realm too, that we're forced to install the butt mouse every day, and then they can audit us against ourselves, and so it's the ultimate governance. Because we're not governing each other anymore by shaming and spying and ratting, but instead you're shaming, spying, and ratting on yourself, to yourself.
Yep.
You know, and it's being documented, it's being written. You know, the little robot secretary's going.
Yeah.
Recording.
Once the AI, this is why I'm telling you transhumanism, there's nothing we can do about it. Because once things like this go online, where we start to realize that the true final frontier is us, that inside of us is the true final frontier, that's really where the first of all, we haven't finished the ocean, so we need to get our ass back in there. But second of all, this whole space thing is just a complete waste of time, because the next frontier is really inside of us. And when we can start to untap and unwind all the things that are inside of us, I think transhumanism is just going to naturally happen. Again, I don't like it, but it's just going to naturally come out of it.
I think it's a repeating cycle. We're imagining we've bought there's a big important lie that we swallowed that's not necessarily true, and it's that there's an endless progress towards Tomorrowland, and it's bullshit. Yeah. There's not endless progress. We already know for sure there's not, because instead of flying cars, here we are not even 2 or 3 months from 2020. We don't have anything like flying cars. And what we do have is 20,000 YouTube channels getting knocked down every day. And if you say you think it's bad for drag queens to dress in scantily clad clothes and read at your kid's school, then you're brought out in the press as being someone who's not just bad, but crazy, right? Like, whereas not very long ago, that was pretty normal to say, hey, I'd prefer no drag queens at the elementary school. This is or at the library.
How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you?
And I always clarify for people, like, my mom took me to the Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was 4. I love people regardless. I don't have my bias against people is if they're fucking assholes or dishonest, but not anything else. I love people. I always have. And so, but we're seeing this change because this always happens. We're in cycles. There's not a ray that starts at a point and goes in a direction. We're in an oscillating cycle. They know that the great years are rolling over. We are literally changing from one age to another. And they know what happens. They have some kind of a blueprint. They've got a map they can look at. They know more than we do. And I don't know, when I say they, I don't know if I mean super enlightened human beings or human beings that are getting information from creatures that we can't describe, or maybe it's like in so many of the fiction stories that hidden somewhere on an island is something we don't understand, kind of what you're describing. And AI in Antarctica, 7 super powerful, superhuman creatures that are outside of where we can get to them, but they have terrific influence over this place. I don't know. But whatever it is that's way above us and invisible to us definitely has a map of how the oscillation of the great years go, and they have desirous outcomes for the future. They know what they're trying to get. So they're grooming and breeding us up for the outcome. And they know some of us are going to slip through the cracks and get away from them and probably live in something like a paradise. But other people are going to get trapped inside the system permanently and probably die in it or be forced to remain alive, God forbid, as like the Matrix, like, oh, we're going to end up being batteries,
Well, if you were the only one that didn't suffer from amnesia, which is literally the deluge, if you were the only one that didn't do that, you would have insight into the archetypal map of culture, and everyone else would not. They would be starting over from the very beginning. So just as an example, and my book talks about this a lot, fashion. I can't believe how powerful fashion is. Mind control, guys.
Really
it's
powerful.
Freaking mind control. In fact, if you look at any war, every war is broken down to a fashion decision. None of us, you're out in the war like in Paris or in France or whatever, Normandy. People were not getting off the boat going, how do you feel about a representative form of government? We think that sucks. Okay. Like, no one's asking each other questions before they kill each other. No one's taking a test to say, hey, I ran a credit report on you. You've got a 178 credit score. Bang. The only factor that determines who gets shot, the only factor is what is he wearing?
Yeah.
What is that guy wearing? That should show you just how fucking powerful fashion is. I mean, wow. More powerful than politics, more powerful than anything. The power of a costume compels you.
Oh, well, like, the joke...
Every single way.
The quote, let me get the quote right. I'm going to draw it up on the street. The quote by Mark Twain on fashion is absolutely true, and it's hilarious, but it's absolutely true. So let's see. Here's Mark Twain. It says, clothes make the man. Naked people have little or no influence on society. It's true, though. Nudists and nudist colonies and people that think we should be naked all the time, no one takes that seriously at all. They, if you're a kind person, if you have a kind heart, you're like, well, I understand they feel that way, and you'll be nice to them, but you don't take them seriously. No one naked is going to be elected to office. No one naked is going to be allowed onto the damn bus, let alone they're not going to be allowed to walk down the street. It's not going to be allowed. You can only streak across the middle of the stadium naked for as long as you can keep your legs having you avoid other human beings trying to tackle and hide your nakedness. Because, every week I go and I get a button-down shirt and put it on because I'm going to be on a live broadcast where people are going to watch me. I'm not going to come and take my shirt off and sit here with my gut hanging out, Yeah. And I may one week decide to put on a clown suit or even put on a dress, but it's all it's just me trolling you. I'm trying to get your attention with my fashion,
Yep.
If I show up in full bondage gear, it's going to be really hard to sit here and talk to me, James. It's going to be hard. Yeah. If I keep unstrapping the ball gag to say what my piece and then put it back on and drool in a bucket, it's going to be really hard to keep the train of thought and evolve this thing.
And forward. that would definitely be a form of mind control. Like, that would definitely be.
Oh, it'd probably be our most popular episode, but I'm not going to do it. So.
Yeah.
And I want to say we're at 3 hours now, so let's just go another 10 minutes or so and call this thing a night. Let's. I'm not trying to rush to an end, but I can see we're all. It's getting later. I don't want to roll into 4 and 5 hours. Let's just do just a little bit past 3. I'll double check my my list here, see if there's any points that. Since I interrupted, I want to remind people to go and go and buy a copy of James' book. And if you're down with what we're doing here, then buy the one from www.jtrue.com so that James himself can load it up with Prana. And write, I love you, thank you, and then you get a version that has its own little Ark of the Covenant inside of it, because it's imbued with James's energy and his pen. let's see what else. James has a Patreon now. He's trying to get going into like this huge, awesome idea of having a campground where we kind of make the campground into like our own sandbox environment, so that we can like build drones to produce a YouTube channel from the campground where the guys building the drones spy on the guys in the sculpting slash augmented reality studio, and like just have this campground. Like we need. What do you think if we had 30 acres?
Anti-school.
Yeah, an anti-school, exactly. It's a deprogramming and then a sovereignty center, right? Something like that. And so
people learn about energy and somatics. In other words, just like teachers, if they want to learn their craft more or what they study, they go on a sabbatical.
Yeah.
These are people that are going on a sommatical. They're learning to get back into their bodies.
Somatical, awesome. That's a great word, somatical.
They're learning how to
experience here inside your flesh is a somatic.
Yeah, it's all about
response.
the prana. Yeah, they're learning how to gain consent over their prana, and that's going to be shedding all the bullshit, which means rebuilding their egoic field from the ground up. Your egoic field is the most important thing you could have. It stops you from being possessed by demons. We're told that we're supposed to hate the ego, and by doing that, it's gelding the psychic force, which allows these possessions to come in.
Now, there's a bunch of great information that James has just published recently about
we're also
demons.
doing a movie. We're doing a movie, which is awesome. The patrons, we've got producers now. There's like 38 of us. If you join Patreon, you're a producer. And we are I'm producing two things. I'll be in Acapulco in February speaking on the main stage, which is freaking awesome. I can't believe that.
Are you scared?
No, I'm just nothing but excited. But I'm doing a presentation on that, and that's going to be part of this movie project. When I say movie, I'm talking about, like a YouTube movie. I'm real low budget here. I've only got 40 patrons right now. But it's called The Man from Katua, and it outlines this new form of government that I wrote about in my book, Blueprints of Mind Control. I had to make sure it was the right book. No, it's in my new book. No. Man from Katua is in this book, Technology of Belief. And it literally explains how the anti-petrodollar, how we can, so everyone's like, all we do is bitch about the government, right? This actually shows how to fix it. And to make it super, super quick, basically, all of us are going to our closest Indian reservation and saying, hey, can my private property come in and become part of the reservation again, like it used to be a long time ago? It's the opposite of what's been happening with our Indian reservations, where they're getting smaller and smaller. Instead, they'd be getting bigger and bigger. And it outlines this blockchain system. It's basically Ethereum, which is a special kind of blockchain. A special kind of token that allows you to assign prana to your money. No, I'm not kidding here. You could actually take $1 and say, this dollar can only be used for peace. It may not be used to buy weapons, rifles, fentanyl. Like, you could assign it, and this isn't like I really want this. No, this is like a legitimate contract that could only be fulfilled if it's spent within these vendors that have pre-qualified within this blockchain. Like, it's all legit. You could physically pull up your phone. So instead of Congress, we'd have these powwows. All of us would go to our local powwow, and that's literally the government. And you'd be showing up with bushels of apples, with pies that you made. You'd be bringing your own contributions, whether it be money, whatever, to this powwow. But this gathering is the government. It's literally the government. And when you go in, you go to the giving tent and you say, I have brought $100,000 worth of gold. Let's say you really had a good year. Here's $1,000 worth of gold that I want to give to my powwow, my community, my land, my bioregion. That's instantly shows up in your app, where now you have you gave $1,000 worth. It equals to 17.6 million Ethernet coins of sovereign token. And then with those tokens, you can now assign each of them to say, I really want this new bridge that I heard we were thinking about building. So I want to take 50% of the money that I brought today and put it towards the bridge. And I want 25% of it to go to the new hay bales barn that we want to build over here on Route 7 that had like it's a
Right.
100% voluntary government, non-coercive. And it's a beautiful story. It's called The Man from Katua. It's inside the technology of belief. And it's showing you the power of voluntary government, of compassion versus coercion. It's taking a look at the prana economy underneath and saying, why can't we change the energy and change what ends up happening with the petrodollar and turn it into something bigger? It's literally the only solution that I've seen that works on a day-to-day basis. You start with buying silver. You start by taking your $20 of fiat money and you say, I, James Chu, no longer want this $20 to be associated with the New World Order. And you look at the freaking pyramid on the back of it, and you stare that pyramid in the face, and you say, I am alchemically turning your ass into silver, into a round of silver. And when you have that silver, you realize you are now a free man that's not a citizen anymore. You're something much more important than a citizen. You are the living soil. You are an alchemical experiment on 2 feet. And I think the more of us do
that
this,
scripture we read earlier said that. It said that Noah was the living soil. It said that in the Bible, right there in that scripture.
freaking awesome.
And that coin always reminds me about the idea to make coins out of the TRACY TWYMAN symbol. Please, folks, we're not there yet for TRACY TWYMAN's Headstone Memorial Fund. It's in the description. If you got extra money, if you can sacrifice some of the money that you can without putting yourself out of house and home, please go and donate. I've been meaning to call a bunch of people on the phone and hit DMs and see if we can put together a group donation, and I haven't done it yet. But the GoFundMe is out there for TRACY TWYMAN's headstone, and we're not there yet. So please, have compassion if you're a fan. If you miss her like we do, help us get that step out of the way so we can move towards a happy step like, hey, we're trying to mint 1,000 TRACY TWYMAN coins. You know, we have to get the memorial there first over her bones before we can put the memorial into the silver coins. So help us, please.
Agreed.
Oh, I got one question here from Oswald Spangler. James, they were wanting to know if you have anything to say about Palantir Technologies, Peter Thiel, and Rene Girard. I don't know who Rene Girard is, but I know who Peter Thiel is. Do you ever study that guy in Palantir?
Yeah, Peter Thiel freaking said Jared Kushner was the most amazing genius he'd ever met because for something stupid like you know, he sold MAGA hats or something, or Jared Kushner was, you know, they anointed him. He's helped to anoint Kushner. That's
Right.
really all I can say about that. However, something really big did come in today from Mind Fuhrer about him, a project he was working on where he was working on this crazy like 2 towers kind of stuff where this special silver substance. I'm sorry, guys. I realize
we'll
I'm
have
not
to
going
take
to
a
go
look.
about these. Yeah.
Oh, I wanted also to point out, James, that when you were talking about the all of the different places we can find the 2 towers, okay, there's a tower that's neglected in the human body. Okay, so the blood is a tower, and then the lymph system is a tower. And the lymph system is a neglected system. So if you're not familiar with the lymph system and how it works as the sewage system, so the blood is like the oxygen of the body. It delivers literal oxygen, but it's also the thing that carries all the good things to all the cells of your body. And the lymph system is designed to be the sewer that allows your body, the interstitial tissues, the tissues that are in between and around cells. The lymph is what allows your body to evacuate everything it doesn't want out. And all of our lymph systems are plugged up. You know, it's something I study every day. Today is the last day of a 10-day detox I just did with herbs. And I literally lost 10 pounds in 10 days, and I feel great. I feel amazing. And it's because you got to move the lymph around in your system. But I mean, when you were talking about 2 towers earlier, it made me think of that. Like, there's 2 towers. Because at first I thought of veins and arteries. So there's towers inside the towers, right? You've got oxygen being delivered via one mechanism and being replenished via another. The veins have to bring the blood back into the heart. The heart works like the torus, just like it looks, you know. It does this all the time. It doesn't stop. This. Or actually, it goes this way. Can you do this? There we go. Not this, and not this, but this. Here's what the heart does, right? It goes. But then on top of the heart, you also have the lymph system. The body's trying to evacuate itself clear of all toxins and everything, with another tower. There's kind of a hidden tower there, or a neglected one.
I like it. Yeah, and I want us to don't think of the two towers as like bad, because literally all magic is going to be these two towers. So it's, because we've seen so much bad black magic happen with two towers, it's just important to realize that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's been harnessed in so many ways in kind of a bad way.
Well, they've given all magic a bad rap on purpose. They want you to think of anything to do with a magical technique or a practice. And don't get me wrong, I think people should be very wary and you need to really study and get your own personal, emotional, and psychological shit together before you start messing with supernatural or, bigger things. You really do. And if you read books, that's what it says. It always says, hey, go get your head right before you start messing with this stuff. But they've painted it as all black magic, all evil, all negative, and all bad. And at the same time, they're using all the identical techniques as endless forms of mind control against us. It's the same. It's not stage magic, and it's not ooga booga like a Hollywood movie. It's literally just spelling. What you just published is another grimoire.
Yep.
It is whether you want it to be or not. What I wrote on my notes today is one page out of a grimoire, whether I want it to be or not. Because I just put all that same pranic energy into it.
Everything that you write, all your tweets, all your correspondence, everything is a grimoire in that way.
Jim
you never know. You never know what's going to be the one that you're remembered for. No. Like you never know. You never know.
Jim Maiden said to me one day, that's Jem here. Jim is with us. He said that every word you speak is a prayer, and that always stuck with me. It's true.
Yep.
You still here with us, Jim?
I'm here.
All right. I think we're going to roll that right up to the edge like that, and let's just call it. Let's call this thing. Unless anybody has anything else to say. I don't want to go too late. It's already 9:12.
Yep. I just want to say thanks to your audience for giving me a shot to say hi. It's really great to be back, and kind of an honor to be here, actually. I always enjoy it.
We're super glad to have you. We want people to not only buy your book and support you on Patreon if they can, but also let people know. Tell people about this show. Tell people about James's work, because obviously we find it compelling, or we wouldn't keep having him back. So.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. I'm just gonna wave at the camera and click the button then. Everybody say, okay, bye. Smash that like button. Like, share, subscribe, or do. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, bye.